Chapter 248. Heaven and Earth Flying Immortal. One Sword to Sever. Impudent! Seeing Ji Xiaoyu summon a phantom that directly annihilated the great cultivator of the Luo family, the other Luo family cultivators were instantly enraged. They each brought out their own Dharma treasures, prepared to kill her on the spot. Luo Yetian was about to speak when the phantom behind Ji Xiaoyu suddenly erupted with golden flames, sweeping in all directions. The cultivators from all directions were too late to dodge and could only instinctively use spiritual power and mana to resist. As the golden flames swept past, the entire world suddenly changed. The sky turned crimson, and countless meteors fell from the distance. Each meteor stirred up a shockwave, creating a breathtaking spectacle. Ji Xiaoyu stood high above, a trace of blood seeping from the corner of her mouth, but her brows did not knit together, remaining indifferent. The phantom behind her ignited with golden flames, and the Tao patterns on its forehead flickered with a strange light. She raised her right hand to her mouth, muttering something, and layers of golden glyphs burst forth from her body, expanding rapidly to dominate the entire sky in less than 3 breaths. I didn't expect the primordial Taoist talisman to contain will. I wonder which ancient predecessor it is that we have disturbed? An elderly voice rang out as an old man in a gray robe appeared, blocking in front of Luo Yetian. Luo Yetian quickly raised his hand to salute him, his demeanor respectful. The old man in the gray robe did not turn around, his gaze fixed intently on the golden phantom behind Ji Xiaoyu. A loose immortal is not enough, Ji Xiaoyu's voice rang out once more. The gray-robed old man's face changed dramatically, and he immediately took out a jade staff. Boom! A horrifying wave of golden flames rushed towards him. The gray-robed old man used his mana to resist, but Luo Yetian behind him still felt the searing pain. This pain was not just on the surface. Even his soul felt the agony. How is this possible? Who exactly is she? Luo Yetian thought in disbelief. The Ji family members below were equally astonished. Was Ji Xiaoyu's primordial Taoist talisman really containing such terrifying power? Ji Jianghu suddenly remembered what Ji Xiaoyu had told him 3 years ago, and a chill ran down his spine. The gray-robed old man, possessing loose immortal cultivation, couldn't withstand the vast golden flames. Blood spots appeared on his skin, as did on Luo Yishan's behind him. The other Luo family great cultivators attacked from different directions, but their mana quickly dissolved as it approached the golden flames, unable to harm Ji Xiaoyu. The mountains trembled as if they were about to collapse, startling the cultivators in their caves. More and more people flew into the sky, looking at Ji Xiaoyu in disbelief. Under their gaze, the golden phantom behind Ji Xiaoyu raised its right hand, drawing cracks across the sky with its fingertips. When her hand stopped, the space along the path shattered instantly, golden flames coiling around the edges of the space rift, forming a gigantic halo. The blood spilling from Ji Xiaoyu's mouth increased, but her eyes remained calm. The golden phantom behind her drew a giant golden fan from the halo, its surface shaped like maple leaves, covered with glyphs, as if hiding numerous worlds. As the giant golden fan descended, the world began to collapse, space twisted and shattered, clouds dispersed, and giant peaks crumbled. The cultivators residing in this land scattered like headless flies, in extreme panic. Retreat with the people! The gray-robed old man's voice was low and solemn as he resisted the golden flames, having transformed into a man of blood. Luo Yetian behind him was slightly better, but his skin also began to ulcerate. Luo Yetian gritted his teeth, just about to turn and leave. At that moment, the golden phantom behind Ji Xiaoyu suddenly swung the fan. A wave of burning flames swept across half of the sky, vaporizing all the cultivators along the way. Gray-robed old man and Luo Yetian couldn't escape. As the flame wave passed, both of them turned into light stars, their bodies and souls annihilated, scattering like falling sparks. This scene left the Ji family cultivators and other clan cultivators stunned and terrified. Ji Xiaoyu tilted her head, looking down at Ji Jianghu. The Ji family cultivators were extremely tense, not daring to meet her gaze. Everyone within the Ji family knew that the family had planned to sacrifice her. She didn't truly wish to marry. With so many dead from the Luo family, how will the Ji family live in the future? Ji Xiaoyu's icy voice reached the ears of the Ji family members. Ji Jianghu, Ji Hantian, and the others felt a chill rise from their hearts, spreading throughout their bodies. Ji Xiaoyu's eyes began to fill with blood, quickly turning blood red. Xiaoyu, What exactly do you want to do? Ji Hantian quickly asked. Apart from the Luo family, no other families had suffered from the golden flames, making other clan cultivators silently sigh in relief. Ji Xiaoyu's eyes, now blood-red, raised to look towards the horizon. At the end of the world appeared a massive black rift from which silhouettes flew out, rapidly approaching. These figures all had an aura stronger than the previous gray-robed old man. A horrifying killing intent locked onto Ji Xiaoyu. Ji Xiaoyu raised her right hand, and the golden phantom behind her mirrored the motion with its giant golden fan. At that moment, a figure appeared before her. Her eyes widened in surprise, showing clear shock despite the blood covering them. Guan, wielding the 9 extremes yin-yang body, stood before Ji Xiaoyu. He held a sword in each hand, one being the heavenly resident sword, the other the Qinghong sword, both shrouded in dark purple demonic qi, hiding their true forms. Facing the approaching great cultivators from afar, Guan casually swung his swords. The sword light illuminated the world. A streak of sword qi, like a white rainbow, swept across the sky. The great cultivators of the 7-star spirit realm attacking Ji Xiaoyu were swallowed by the sword qi before they could even see Guan's form, turned to ash and vanished. You have successfully taken 590 years of lifespan from Luo Ku, 7th level of loose immortal realm. You have successfully taken 387 years of lifespan from Daoist Jinlan, 9th level of loose immortal realm. You have successfully taken 1032 years of lifespan from Lu Chongfeng, 7th level of loose immortal realm. One by one, notifications appeared before Guan's eyes. Guan turned to look at the devastated Ji Xiaoyu, deeply alarmed. The power of this primordial Daoist talisman was astonishing. It was already comparable to the wandering immortal realm. However, Ji Xiaoyu was struggling to withstand it. Her life force was fading rapidly. He spoke. Withdraw your divine skill. He used the voice of Sword Venerable Fudao, hoarse and steady. Ji Xiaoyu smiled and said, Reincarnation has begun, and it cannot be reversed. Guan's gaze shifted to the golden phantom behind her. He could see that the soul aura of the golden phantom was identical to Ji Xiaoyu's. This power must have originated from somewhere else, summoned rather than hidden within her. He tried a lifespan detection on the golden phantom but found nothing. Sword Venerable, have you come specifically to assist me? Ji Xiaoyu suddenly asked. Guan replied, I came to annihilate the 7-star spirit realm. Ji Xiaoyu's eyes bled as she smiled. This life was too short, Sword Venerable. If we are fated, we shall meet again in the future. Her body suddenly burst forth with golden light and then scattered. A golden talisman appeared, absorbing the surrounding golden light into itself, and then quickly merged into the golden phantom. Guan's gaze fell on the giant fan in the hands of the golden phantom, feeling the terrifying power within it. This treasure was no weaker than the divine exotic city, and it wasn't even a physical object, just manifested power. The golden phantom swung its fan, and an overwhelming wave of golden flame soared overhead, breaking through the heavens. The terrifying spiritual energy surged in from the minor heaven and earth outside. A burst of intense light erupted from the distant darkness, a presence beyond a wandering immortal realm approaching, extremely fast. Heaven and earth flying immortal. This heaven and earth flying immortal raised his palm to strike, intending to annihilate the golden phantom with one blow. The golden phantom immediately raised its fan to defend. Rumble, the heavens trembled, and space collapsed and twisted. Guan stood beneath the fan, looking up at the giant golden fan, filled with curiosity about this treasure. Sword Venerable, my power won't hold for long. Ji Xiaoyu's voice sounded tired. The golden phantom's arm trembled, the fan moving closer to Guan, unable to withstand the power of the heaven and earth flying immortal. Guan focused using lifespan detection on the heaven and earth flying immortal. Earth Gang Divine Lord, first layer of heaven and earth flying immortal realm 129080/23000/250000. A heaven and earth flying immortal who had lived for 12,000 years. Guan took a step, crossing the distance of two formidable powers, appearing in front of the Earth Gang Divine Lord. The Earth Gang Divine Lord's face changed dramatically, disbelief showing on his face. Sword light flashed, sword chi burst forth. With one slash, Guan annihilated the Earth Gang Divine Lord, body and soul, in an instant. The terrifying force even pushed back the golden phantom. The golden phantom, holding the giant fan, looked at Gu An's back, its features changing, clearly startled by Gu An's power. I underestimated you, Sword Venerable. I look forward to meeting you again, Ji Xiaoyu's voice sounded. Immediately after, the golden phantom scattered, merging into the primordial Taoist talisman. The primordial Taoist talisman tore through space and quickly disappeared. Guan turned to see the Ji family cultivators retreating. Amid the crowd, Ji Hantian seemed to sense something and looked back, meeting his gaze. At that moment, Ji Hantian felt a mix of shock and guilt. He was shocked at Sword Venerable Fudao's invincible presence in the seven-star spirit realm, and guilt-ridden for seemingly disappointing the elder. He had always thought that the righteous path inscribed on the heavenly repair platform was left by Sword Venerable Fudao, hoping he could lead the supreme sect onto the righteous path. The fiery aura in the sky surged like tidal waves. A blink of an eye later, Ji Hantian could no longer see Sword Venerable Fudao's figure. Guan took one step across space, arriving at a vast white jade square where thousands of disciples of the seven-star spirit realm were meditating, all facing a grand palace ahead. No one noticed Gu An's arrival. Gu An's gaze shifted to the palace, feeling the presence of another heaven and earth flying immortal hidden within. Chapter 249. If the heavens don't take you, I will in the palace. The sound of preaching continuously echoed, immersing the cultivators in the plaza, making it difficult for them to extricate themselves. Guan, holding his twin swords, stepped forward. Against the seven-star spirit realm, he did not intend to reach the level of exterminating everyone. He only wanted to slaughter the high-ranking members to disperse the seven-star spirit realm on this continent. If he were to annihilate the entire seven-star spirit realm, the surrounding major forces would undoubtedly become more wary of him, possibly drawing even stronger entities. Guan walked among the disciples of the seven-star spirit realm. With each step, he resisted the preaching sound from the palace. The disciples behind him awakened one by one. Seeing Guan, they were startled, hurriedly got up, took out their magic artifacts and divine weapons, and prepared for battle. Guan continued to walk without looking back or pausing his steps. Who is he? What does he intend to do? I can't see through his cultivation level. We shouldn't act rashly after all. There's a divine lord stationed here. Could he be someone from the Star Sea congregations? No, this seems like the demon shadow divine skill, a cultivation technique from the Thousand Autumn Pavilion of the Taizong dynasty. I have seen it before. The one who mastered it fully is the Sword Venerable Fudao residing in the Supreme Sect. Sword Venerable Fudao. These 4 words made the disciples in the plaza tremble with fear. How could they not have heard of Sword Venerable Fudao, who even forced the cave master Divine Soul True Lord of the 6 Stars Cave to retreat? It was said that after that battle, the Divine Soul True Lord disappeared and no one knew where he went. There were also speculations within the 7-star spirit realm that the Divine Soul True Lord was killed by Sword Venerable Fudao. No matter the claim, the strength of Sword Venerable Fudao was something the 7-star spirit realm dreaded. The disciples in this plaza were either geniuses or nobles of the 7-star spirit realm. They knew some inside information. For example, startling immortal Lin from the Lin family died at the hands of Sword Venerable Fudao. Instantly, more and more disciples in the plaza woke up. Regardless of their high cultivation levels, none dared to approach Guan, let alone stop him. Before long, Guan arrived in front of the palace steps. Being closer, he could better appreciate the majesty of the palace, exuding a Taoist intent Guan had never felt before. This Taoist intent could make it easier for one to comprehend Taoist sorcery, indicating that the materials of this palace were not simple and might contain some powerful formation. There was only one person inside the palace, a heaven and earth flying immortal. Stronger by a few degrees than the previous Earthgang Divine Lord. It had to be known that the strongest beings in the 6 Stars Cave and the 7 Stars Cave were only in the wandering immortal realm. Now, 2 heaven and earth flying immortals had emerged, indicating that the 7-star spirit realm had long been prepared. Fortunately, Guan had not rashly come before. He dared to come now because he was certain that the 7-star spirit realm did not have a carefree primordial immortal. The Star Sea congregations were unlikely to deceive him. After all, if the 7-star spirit realm had a carefree primordial immortal, how could they allow the Star Sea congregations to oppress them so? Sword Venerable Fudao, what kind of irreconcilable enmity do you have with my 7-star spirit realm? An elderly voice echoed from within the palace, resounding in this heaven and earth. Hearing his voice, The agitated disciples in the plaza calmed down one by one. This was a senior from the 5 Stars Cave, renowned overseas, surely capable of subduing Sword Venerable Fudao. Since the 7 Stars Spirit Realm had many minor heaven and earths, and they existed separately without being connected, the battle in the minor heaven and earth where the Ji family resided could not be felt. They were unaware that a heaven and earth flying immortal had already fallen at Guan's hands. They did not know, but the heaven and earth flying immortal inside the palace was very clear about it. Raising the demon ancestor, creating evil demons, and toying with mortals. Do you still wonder if there's a grudge? Guan's voice rang out, changing the expressions of all the cultivators in the plaza. Although they had vaguely heard of it, it was still hard to accept when Sword Venerable Fudao tore away the disguise of this sin. After all, the 7 Stars Spirit Realm prided itself as following the righteous path. Boom! The palace doors swung open, a strong wind howled out, blowing the demonic chi on Guan and forcing back all the disciples in the plaza. A figure walked out from the depths of the palace, a man in a feathered robe with a valiant face, a white craned shadow swirling behind him. His whole being exuding immortal aura. He walked to the steps, looking down at Guan from above. You, covered in demonic chi, have come to seek justice in a holy land. Don't you find it laughable? The feathered robe man asked indifferently. 10,000 miles Divine Lord, Heaven and Earth Flying Immortal Realm, 3rd Layer 158082/26000/310000. Guan looked at the prompt in front of him, unmoved. He could feel that 10,000 miles Divine Lord was stalling for time. Several Heaven and Earth Flying Immortals were rushing over. This was precisely what Guan wanted. Guan responded, Demon is not demon, immortal is not immortal. If the heavens won't judge you, I will. 10,000 miles Divine Lord laughed aloud as if he had heard a grand joke. That demon ancestor is formed from the chi fortune of heaven and earth. It can only be killed, not abolished forever. To suppress it, how many disciples of the 7 Star Spirit Realm have guarded here for generations? The evil demons are vile beyond measure. To seal it, how many lives has the 7 Star Spirit Realm lost? Sword Venerable Fudao, do you know how many enemies the 7 Star Spirit Realm has repelled to protect the environment of this continent? How many disciples have been buried in the ocean? You only see the suffering of the mortals on the continent, but have you considered how much the 7 Star Spirit Realm has sacrificed? 10,000 miles Divine Lord spoke vehemently, his words stirring the emotions of all the cultivators in the plaza. Indeed, others might not know, but being disciples of the 7 Star Spirit Realm, how could they be unaware of the 7 Star Spirit Realm's long-term defense of the continent? Each of them had close relatives or friends who had died in battles with ocean forces and demons. They looked at Guan with expressions full of anger, as if Guan was the sinner. Guan stood in place, quietly watching 10,000 miles Divine Lord. When 10,000 miles Divine Lord finished speaking, he suddenly asked, The evil demons on the continent have been eliminated by me. Why then, are there other evil demons in your hall? The plaza fell silent instantly, all eyes fixed on 10,000 miles Divine Lord. 10,000 miles Divine Lord coldly replied, Nonsense, must I let you enter the hall to check? Rumble, rolling thunderclouds swiftly covered the sky, vast auras descended. 10,000 miles Divine Lord visibly relaxed a bit. My 7 Star Spirit Realm is the holy land established by the immortal path holy court in the mortal world. How could you, an evil demon, slander it? Laughable, one who dares not reveal his true self, yet dreams of toppling the 7 Star Spirit Realm single-handedly? Killing our Divine Lord of the 7 Star Spirit Realm, today will see you eradicated without reincarnation. For hundreds of thousands of years, how many beings have been saved by my 7 Star Spirit Realm? Do you think you can shake it? Whether one is righteous or demonic, it's not for you to judge. One after another, majestic and imposing voices resounded like thunder, startling the disciples in the plaza. They all looked up, their faces full of shock. Strong lights emerged from the swirling thunderclouds, piercing through the sea of clouds and illuminating the sky and earth. At the same time, snow began to fall over the continent. In the height of summer, snowflakes drifted down from the sky, causing all beings on earth to wonder. In the third Medicine Valley, the disciples stopped what they were doing and looked up at the snowflakes filling the sky. Yang Jian stood in front of the wooden railing, reaching out to catch a snowflake. It quickly melted, turning not into water, but a wisp of white gas. This is... Yang Jian frowned, sensing an elusive aura from the snowflake. This aura intrigued him, and he immediately reached out to grab more snowflakes. Yu Yingying, who was playing chess with an Xian, looked up. Snow in summer, what kind of omen is this? I've never seen it before, an Xian muttered. Yu Yingying reached out, catching a snowflake. It turned into a wisp of white gas and dissipated. Her expression changed slightly, and she whispered, "Heavenly snowfall, snow turning to gas, this is abnormal. Could it be the legendary sign of an immortal's fall?" An Xian asked curiously, "What is the sign of an immortal's fall?" Yu Yingying replied, "I've heard that when a high Dao level immortal falls, heaven and earth would produce an anomaly, as a testament to their lives' cultivation achievements." An immortal's fall? Is it on this continent or overseas? An Xian asked curiously. Yu Yingying looked up, her eyes complex, and answered, "Probably on this continent." Throughout the Supreme Sect, any cultivator exposed to sunlight was discussing this sudden anomaly in heaven and earth. Yilan also stepped out of her room and into the courtyard. She looked up with furrowed brows. Miles away, Wu Ju was similarly affected. Yet, he seemed to attain an almost mystical state, as if comprehending something. In the great Jiang dynasty, in the Juhua sect, Jiang Qiong and the ghost mother of ephemera stood on the cliff's edge, reaching out to catch snowflakes. A sign of an immortal's fall. It appears the conflict between the Seven Stars spirit realm and the Star Sea congregations has reached an irreconcilable point. A high Dao level immortal has fallen, the ghost mother of ephemera said, frowning with worry. Jiang Qiong smiled, "The more fiercely they fight, the better it is for us." Despite her words, she felt an inexplicable unease, as if something bad was about to happen. In the Seven Stars spirit realm, the thunderclouds spread, forming a giant vortex. A golden mirror floated in the vortex, its edges carved with patterns of various divine beasts, the mirror surface a deep blue, surrounded by crimson flames. Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. The Seven Stars Mirror. In front of the Seven Stars Mirror, a figure floated. He wore a long purple robe, with two fiery red orbs hovering over his shoulders like suns. Behind him was a crescent moon, from which wisps of spiritual energy emanated, forming colorful clouds around him. He looked down at Guan from above. Realm Master of Heavenly Meaning, Heaven and Earth Flying Immortal Realm, 7th Layer 187034/42000/490000. Guan looked at this man's lifespan with slight satisfaction. In this Heaven and Earth, a total of 7 Heaven and Earth Flying Immortals had appeared. Besides the Realm Master of Heavenly Meaning, the cultivation levels of the others were all below the 6th layer, except for one who had reached the 5th layer of the Heaven and Earth Flying Immortal Realm. With the appearance of the Seven Stars Mirror, the entire minor heaven and earth was sealed. Creatures outside could not enter, and those inside could not escape. The disciples in the plaza bore unimaginable pressure, falling to their knees and painfully gazing at the sky. The high-standing 6 Heaven and Earth Flying Immortals remained indifferent to the disciples' suffering. So did 10,000 Miles Divine Lord in front of the palace doors. He took out a divine weapon, a silver spear about 10 feet long, with a black flag just below the spearhead, depicting a demonic shadow. All 7 Heaven and Earth Flying Immortals focused their gazes on Guan. At this moment, Guan seemed to be resisting the entire heaven and earth. Chapter 250 Arrogant Sword Venerable. Do you still have reinforcements? The divine light of the Seven Stars Mirror was so brilliant, illuminating the expressions of all the disciples of the Seven Stars Spirit Realm on the square. At this moment, the disciples of the Seven Stars Spirit Realm also realized that something was wrong. The high and mighty heaven and earth flying immortals seemed to be preparing to abandon them. For a while, cries, pleas for mercy, sobs, and curses kept ringing out. But Guan, who was being stared at by the 7 Heaven and Earth Flying Immortals, was looking at the 2 treasure swords in his hand. The Realm Master of Heavenly Meaning looked down at Guan and asked, "Do you have anything else to say?" Sword Venerable Fudeo's origins were mysterious, and he could even slay Heaven and Earth Flying Immortals, so the Realm Master couldn't help but feel some dread. He feared that there might be even more terrifying beings standing behind Sword Venerable Fudao, so he didn't act immediately. If he had no backing, he would not let Sword Venerable Fudao go today. Guan raised his head, looked up at the 6 Heaven and Earth Flying Immortals in the sky, and asked, "Are your people all here, Or do you still have reinforcements? As soon as these words were spoken, the faces of the 7 heaven and earth flying immortals all changed dramatically. Arrogant. They had lived for hundreds of thousands of years and had never seen such an arrogant person. With the immortal path supreme treasure overhead and 7 heaven and earth flying immortals working together, could he dare to be so arrogant? The realm master of heavenly meaning thought of many possibilities in an instant. He even thought that sword venerable Fu Dao might be at a higher realm than the heaven and earth flying immortals, but then he dismissed the idea, thinking how could such an ethereal existence be hiding in a small corner of this continent? Shouldn't he go to outer heaven to seek the opportunity for the great Tao? Feeling the power of the 7 stars mirror, the realm master of heavenly meaning's eyes flashed with fierceness. Even if someone surpassed the heaven and earth flying immortal realm and killed so many great cultivators of the 7 star spirit realm, this matter could not be let go. He immediately raised his hand. The 7 stars mirror, as high as 10,000 feet, trembled violently, bursting out with even more terrifying pressure. The voices of all the disciples of the 7 star spirit realm on the square came to an abrupt end, and they desperately felt their skin ulcerate and their flesh dissolve. At this moment, a vast power enveloped them, removing the torture they were enduring. They couldn't help but widen their eyes, looking subconsciously for the source of this power, and their gaze fell on Guan. Have you recognized it now? Is this the Holy Land you think it is? Guan's voice rang out, making the faces of the disciples of the 7 stars spirit realm look complicated. They were all the talented disciples of the 6 stars cave and 7 stars cave, believing they had a great role in bearing the future of the 7 star spirit realm. Yet now, they were being abandoned by the 7 star spirit realm without any fault of their own. How could they accept this? The 10,000 miles divine lord also flew under the 7 stars mirror. The 7 immortals worked together, their bodies bursting into light, resembling the Big Dipper, suspended under the 7 stars mirror. Their mana merged with the aura of the 7 stars mirror, making the pressure of the 7 stars mirror even more formidable. Guan looked up at them, feeling emotional. So this was the power of the immortal path supreme treasure? He felt that the power displayed by the 7 stars mirror at this moment had already surpassed that of the heaven and earth flying immortals. Even a great cultivator of the first 3 layers of the carefree primordial immortal realm would find it difficult to resist. Of course, even if a carefree primordial immortal couldn't match it, escaping would still be easy. Guan suddenly had a new idea. He asked aloud, "Gentlemen, if I shatter this dark sky, can you bring brightness to this land?" Upon hearing this, the 7 heaven and earth flying immortals frowned. The disciples of the 7 stars spirit realm on the square were all stunned. Before they could react, Guan slashed his sword. His right hand held the heavenly resident's sword. His wrist rotated, with the tiger's mouth facing downwards, and the blade slashed upwards. His posture was so casual. This sword seemed to have no powerful momentum, yet as the sword slashed the sky, flames and air blasts dissipated. The 7 heaven and earth flying immortals in front of the 7 stars mirror could not evade and were directly turned to ashes. Boom! The 7 stars mirror was struck by sword chi, shaking violently. The thunderclouds above were directly cleaved, and sunlight poured down. The tens of thousands of geniuses of the 7 stars spirit realm on the square were all dumbfounded, unable to believe their eyes. They had already felt the power of the realm master of heavenly meaning and the 7 stars mirror. That was a power they couldn't even imagine or resist. Even though sword venerable Fudeo's mana protected them, they still thought a fierce battle would occur. But that wasn't the case. One sword to annihilate. Crushing and devastating. It seemed as if they hadn't killed the strongest of the 7 star spirit realm but rather the cloud waves in the sky. The storm swept across the world, and the fierce wind crashed through the spirit mist enveloping the mountains and rivers. One after another, the mountain forests appeared, pressed by the violent gale like turbulent waves, spectacular beyond compare. Only the 7 stars mirror remained in the sky. The 10,000-foot-high 7 stars mirror quickly withdrew its aura. The mirror body trembled for a while and then began to fall. You have successfully taken 25,709 years of life from the realm master of heavenly meaning, 7th layer of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. You have successfully taken 10,041 years of life from the 10,000 miles divine lord, 3rd layer of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. You have successfully taken 18,116 years of life from the divine lord Xiaolang, 5th layer of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. A total of 6 messages appeared in front of Guwen, making Guwen secretly puzzled. Why was one person missing? Guwen remembered that person, named Thousand-Faced Divine Lord, with a cultivation level of the 4th layer of the Heaven and Earth Flying Immortal realm. He clearly felt that the 7 Heaven and Earth Flying Immortals all turned to ashes, and it was impossible for anyone to escape. Could it be that this person had other avatars? If so, why could he still sense their lifespan? Guwen's divine sense quickly enveloped the continent and kept expanding but couldn't find any trace of the Thousand-Faced Divine Lord. This opened his eyes. The Thousand-Faced Divine Lord was quite a character, able to escape from his hands, even more capable than the Realm Master of Heavenly Meaning at the 7th layer of the Heaven and Earth Flying Immortal realm. Guwen suddenly gained more than 80,000 years of life. Previously, when he killed the cultivators of the Luo family, he had also gained more than 50,000 years of life. This time, he gained nearly 130,000 years of life, which was quite good, saving him months of effort. The most important thing was to eliminate potential threats. Guwen raised his hand, storing the now shrunken 7 stars mirror in his hand. He probed it with his divine sense, overbearingly destroying layers of restrictions, quickly finding the immortal spirit, and forcibly making it acknowledge him as its master. The storm in the world was still surging. The cultivators on the square looked up, remaining silent for a while before accepting the fact that they had survived. Thump! A cultivator suddenly knelt down, facing Guwen, and began to kowtow. With someone taking the lead, others followed suit and kowtowed. Over 10,000 people bowed to Guwen, making a rather magnificent scene. It is up to you to change the 7 stars spirit realm on this land. If it continues to be like before, named as a holy land but practicing evil, I will return. Then, it won't be just the high-ranking members who will die. Guwen's voice rang out, and he slashed towards the palace with the Qinghong sword in his left hand. Boom! A sword chi swept out, forcefully splitting the palace into 2, immediately turning it into ashes. Such overwhelming power at his fingertips made the kneeling cultivators tremble in fear, and at the same time, they felt a fervent admiration for Guwen's sword. Venerable Fudao was not only powerful but also saved them. How could they harbor resentment? If they were to hate anyone, it would be those high-ranking members who wanted to kill them. At this moment, they all widened their eyes. As the palace turned to ashes, demons flew out. Their aura was all that of evil demons, with male, female, and even demon forms. They wailed and were ultimately obliterated by the wind. Exterminating a group of evil demons did not bring Guwen any lifespan, but it gave the geniuses of the 7 stars spirit realm a tremendous mental shock. How could the Holy Land nurture so many evil demons? When they came back to their senses, Guwen's figure was already gone. A teleportation array appeared in the distant sky, and countless cultivators surged in. The genius disciples on the square were still in shock, recalling everything that had happened earlier, feeling like they were in a dream. In a dim palace, a woman in a purple dress watched as the 6 oil lamps at the highest point of the wall went out simultaneously. Her eyebrows immediately furrowed. The young ghost boy on her shoulder widened his eyes and exclaimed in shock, "Have the realm masters fallen? How is that possible?" The highest oil lamps represented the pinnacle of power in the 7 star spirit realm. The oil lamp of the realm master of heavenly meaning was particularly large, like a moon surrounded by stars. At this moment, a figure appeared out of thin air beside the woman in the purple dress. As soon as this person appeared, he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. He immediately sat down to cultivate energy, suppressing the chaotic qi and blood in his body. The woman in the purple dress turned to look at him, her eyebrows furrowing even more tightly. Thousand-Faced Divine Lord, what on earth happened? Why did the realm masters all fall? The woman in the purple dress asked. The person cultivating energy was none other than the Thousand-Faced Divine Lord who had escaped from Guwen's hands. He was wearing a blue robe, with long hair draped over his shoulders, and his face was as delicate as a woman's. At this moment, his complexion was extremely pale, and his lips were still trembling. The 6 Stars Cave was attacked, and the realm masters thought the Starseed congregations were attacking, so they went to support. We encountered Sword Venerable Fudao from the continent. He annihilated us with a single sword. The power of the 7 Stars Mirror couldn't withstand his sword chi. The 7 Stars Mirror has now fallen into his hands, the Thousand-Faced Divine Lord said tremulously. He opened his eyes, filled with despair, and said, He was too strong. The heaven and earth flying immortals were like dust before him. If I hadn't detected something wrong and used my divine skills to switch my main soul and avatar, I would have died too. Even so, the fall of my avatar brought me enormous backlash, and I will need to recover for the next 10,000 years. Thinking about Sword Venerable Fudeo's figure, his body couldn't help but tremble. He then looked at the woman in the purple dress and said, "Second Cave Master, the 7-star spirit realm is finished. The 7 heaven and earth flying immortals are dead, leaving only you and me. With the 7 stars mirror in Sword Venerable Fudeo's hands, we are powerless to resist the Star Sea congregations. We need to make plans early." The woman in the purple dress was the 2nd Cave Master of the 7-star spirit realm. After listening to the 1,000-faced Divine Lord, she fell into silence. Recently, the 7-star spirit realm had been repeatedly suppressed by the Star Sea congregations. She had considered the possibility of their demise but didn't expect it to come so quickly. In just one day, 7 heaven and earth flying immortals had fallen. Heaven and earth flying immortals were the foundation of the 7-star spirit realm. Plans? What plans can we have? Moreover, the gate to the divine exotic realm has already opened. Once the catastrophe descends, entangled by karma, escaping to outer heaven would be useless. The 2nd Cave Master said, her gaze eerie, as if thinking about something. The 1,000-faced Divine Lord used his power to suppress his injuries and said, "I don't care. I must leave the 7-star spirit realm. I have cultivated for tens of thousands of years and don't want my path to end abruptly. If there is something I can do to help in the future, feel free to ask. But I do not want to fight Sword Venerable Fudao again." He stood up, bowing to the 2nd Cave Master, then disappeared from the spot. In the dim great hall, only the 2nd Cave Master and the young ghost boy on her shoulder were left. The flickering candlelight made their shadows look like ferocious demons. Chapter 251. The world changes drastically. A huge trouble in the forest. Guan sat in meditation under a tree, leaning against the trunk, playing with the 7 stars mirror. The 7 stars mirror, which emitted an aura rivaling that of a carefree primordial immortal, became small and exquisite in his hands, looking nothing like an immortal path's supreme treasure. Snowflakes fell through the gaps in the leaves, landing on him and melting into vapor. 7 heaven and earth flying immortals had suddenly fallen, causing the heavens and the earth to mourn, and snowflakes continued to fall. While holding the 7 stars mirror, Guan also used his divine sense to trace the primordial Taoist talisman. He was very curious about Ji Xiaoyu's ancestry and divine skills. When the primordial Taoist talisman fled, he specifically used his divine sense to follow it. Although the primordial Taoist talisman crossed the rules of heaven and earth, hiding in places unreachable by living beings, he could still track it. He noticed that the primordial Taoist talisman did not leave the continent but returned to the Ji family. However, it was not to the branch family where Ji Xiaoyu was born, but to a branch family located in the great Jiang dynasty. Guan thought of Ji Xiaoyu's decisive appearance earlier and felt a little sentimental. He did not expect Ji Xiaoyu to go all out directly. That mysterious shadow should be her past life. Ji Xiaoyu seemed to be practicing a method similar to the primordial reincarnation skill. The difference was that while the primordial reincarnation skill accumulated chi fortune and talent through reincarnation, Ji Xiaoyu already possessed great power herself, and she could even summon this power, crossing ages and reincarnations. What would Ji Xiaoyu be like at her peak? He did not know. He just felt it was a pity for Ji Xiaoyu to fall in this life. "Third Miss, I hope you have good fortune in your next life and are no longer coerced by your family," Guan thought. Seeing that the primordial Taoist talisman still remained in the Ji family, he was very puzzled about the relationship between Ji Xiaoyu and the Ji family. If it was only a relationship in this life, why not reincarnate into a different family? Perhaps he could ask the soul of the branch family, Ji Zhan. But after thinking about it, he decided against it. That was Ji Xiaoyu and the Ji family's destiny. Why should he interfere, and what reason did he have to investigate? Guan treated everyone around him like this, not prying into their pasts, but cherishing their current companionship. After this battle, he looked forward to meeting Ji Xiaoyu again in the future. By then, would Ji Xiaoyu be another person, or still the third miss of this life? The mirror of the 7 stars mirror reflected Guan's handsome face. His eyes seemed to cross the vast ocean of time, reaching the other side of destiny. Guan focused on the 7 stars mirror. This was a truly well-preserved immortal path supreme treasure, even stronger than divine exotic city. Even after being attacked by his mana, the 7 stars mirror did not develop a single crack. Instinct told him that the 7 stars mirror could become even stronger. It was just that the realm master of heavenly meaning and others could only unleash it to that level. He connected his mind with the 7 stars immortal spirit. Immediately, the 7 stars mirror began to change, its edges transforming from the shape of a divine beast to floral patterns, and its overall color turned dim. At first glance, it was just an ancient and plain mirror, nothing resembling a supreme treasure. He revealed a satisfied smile, then placed the 7 stars mirror into his bosom. He stood up, looking at the still falling heavy snow, but feeling that the sky had become brighter than before. It's time to go home. The summer snowfall lasted for 7 days. When the heavenly phenomena dissipated, news about the 7 stars spirit realm had not yet spread, but the supreme sect had already been alarmed. To be precise, the entire immortal cultivation world of the 3 dynasties was sending people to investigate, and there were even continuous streams of overseas cultivators arriving, heading for the 7 stars spirit realm. But this time, no great cultivator dared to fly over the supreme sect. A great storm was brewing. After Guan returned to the supreme sect, he acted as if nothing had happened, occasionally checking the primordial Taoist talisman to see if Xianxia had reincarnated. Life remained leisurely, but Guan felt more relaxed than before. At least the 7 stars spirit realm was no more. That's right, it was going to be gone. Guan's divine sense surveyed the ocean, seeing the cultivators from the Star Sea congregations chasing down the 7 stars spirit realm cultivators everywhere. It wasn't just the Star Sea congregations. Other major forces were also following to devour the 7 stars spirit realm's territory and chi fortune, showing him the scene of survival of the fittest. One day, someone came to visit Guan. It was none other than the 9-Finger Divine Lord, who served as a guest elder of the supreme sect. Although this man was of the 2nd level of the wandering immortal realm, his maximum lifespan reached 800,000 years, and his current lifespan was 180,000 years. He suspected the 9-Finger Divine Lord had once fallen from a higher realm. When the 9-Finger Divine Lord first joined the supreme sect, it was Guan who had shown him around, leading to their friendship. Chu Jingfeng was still following him for training. Under the tree, Guan and the 9-Finger Divine Lord sat face to face, with an Xian helping to pour tea. The 9-Finger Divine Lord smiled and nodded at an Xian, then chatted with Guan, praising him for managing the Medicine Valley in an orderly manner. Since meeting Guan, his heart had become calm. Overseas, no matter where he went, the air was filled with scheming and power struggles, but Guan's Medicine Valley had a sense of tranquility, and he felt this atmosphere was related to Guan himself. He had also inquired about Guan from Chu Jingfeng, and Chu Jingfeng's evaluation of Guan was the same as his own. He definitely wouldn't imagine that I have the cultivation level of the 2nd level of the wandering immortal realm. Also, it's probable he hasn't heard of the term wandering immortal in this short life. The 9-Finger Divine Lord held the tea bowl, looking at Guan with a smile. Guan raised his bowl as well and smiled back at him. If this old fellow knew I was at the 9th layer of the carefree primordial immortal, could he remain this calm? Guan thought, finding it very amusing. The 9-Finger Divine Lord suddenly said, "Lately the world has been unstable. You need to be careful. Try to stay out of the valley as much as possible." Hearing this, Guan frowned and asked, "Senior, has something major happened?" The 9-Finger Divine Lord hesitated for a moment, then softly said, "To be honest, the holy land of this continent, the 7 stars spirit realm, is about to collapse. This will inevitably affect the balance of both the continent and the ocean. Without the pressure of the 7 stars spirit realm, it's inevitable that more great cultivators will invade this continent." Guan asked in surprise, "How could that be possible? That's a holy land." The disadvantages of destroying the 7 stars spirit realm hadn't escaped Guan's consideration. But there were pros and cons to everything. Even if the 7 stars spirit realm wasn't destroyed, who knew what calamity it planned next? If it weren't for him, the immortal cultivation world of the 3 dynasties and the beings of the continent would have long perished in the demon calamity. Guan had a clear conscience. Considering his own safety, he only thought about being a savior. He never shouldered the world's safety. He was first a man, then an immortal. It's indeed incredible. That was a colossus standing for hundreds of thousands of years. "I don't know who did it," the 9-Finger Divine Lord sighed. Guan asked, Since the world is about to fall into chaos, why doesn't Senior stay in the supreme sect? The ocean is surely more dangerous than the continent, isn't it? He hoped to fully bring the Nine-Finger Divine Lord into the supreme sect's camp, so he wouldn't have to deal with some minor threats. Truth be told, killing didn't have that much appeal to him, compared to the longevity offered by medicinal herbs. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord nodded and said, "I'm planning to stay for a while, because I have a suspicion in my mind." "What suspicion?" "Haha, that I cannot tell you, lest you get entangled in karma." "Really? Then please don't say it. Though I'm unaware of your realm, your world is definitely not one I can tread." Ha ha ha. Hearing Gu An's words, the Nine-Finger Divine Lord laughed heartily. Throughout his life, he had met many people, but few were as calm and open-minded as Gu En. Although he hadn't revealed his true cultivation level, even his superficial level was enough to make most core formation realm cultivators go out of their way to please him. Gu En was different. Their friendship was one of a gentleman's, without any interests involved, making him feel very comfortable. Gu En didn't listen to him much. From time to time, he would talk about amusing things in his valley. Though plain, they had a unique flavor to the Nine-Finger Divine Lord. Having stood atop the clouds for so long, occasionally looking at the lives of mortals was quite nice. Later, Gu En invited the Nine-Finger Divine Lord to play a game of Go. After explaining the rules just once, the Nine-Finger Divine Lord understood. At first, the Nine-Finger Divine Lord's moves were messy, but after about 40 moves, he started to develop his own strategy. From blind defense to strategic preparation, he improved rapidly. Gu En became interested and started playing seriously. In the end he won. The defeated Nine-Finger Divine Lord was not angry. Instead, he looked at the board with interest, savoring Gu An's strategies. "Interesting, let's play again," the Nine-Finger Divine Lord said, looking up. Gu En then called out to Xiaochuan, who was passing by, asking him to play, stating that Xiaochuan was better than him, making Xiaochuan raise his chin. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord didn't care who his opponent was as long as they knew how to play. Thus, the two began to battle on the Go board, attracting other disciples to watch the excitement. Yang Jian stood by Gu En, watching the game. He wasn't interested in Go. He preferred Chinese chess with its more straightforward and intense battles. However, he could sense the Nine-Finger Divine Lord's profound aura, indicating that this person was very powerful, prompting him to watch the excitement. They played until dusk, and Xiaochuan was dazed. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord stood up contentedly, looked at Gu En, and said, "All right, I need to go to the main city of the sect. I'll come back later for another game. I think this Go contains the true meaning of Tao. Good game." His gaze fell involuntarily on Yang Jian. "Oh!" The Nine-Finger Divine Lord's eyes changed immediately. Although Yang Jian had concealed his cultivation, the Nine-Finger Divine Lord could tell at a glance that Yang Jian's physique was special. Gu En quickly said, "You already took away Chu Jingfeng, don't even think about taking my disciple. He is with me for life." The surrounding disciples looked at Yang Jian with complex expressions. Could Yang Jian really be a genius? Yang Jian echoed, "That's right. I will serve my master for life and will never acknowledge another master." Next to him, an Xian showed a look of envy, thinking of her own master in her youth. If she had extraordinary talent, would her master have been willing to keep her by his side? But then she let it go, thinking her senior and Hao had exceptional talent but still couldn't stay with the master. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord gave Yang Jian a deep look, then turned his gaze to Gu En and said, "Your disciple is indeed extraordinary. Make sure he stays in the Medicine Valley and doesn't descend the mountain. Otherwise, he might cause you trouble." After speaking, the Nine-Finger Divine Lord leaped into the air, like a white crane flying toward the horizon. His words made the surrounding disciples look at Yang Jian with even more curiosity, but Yang Jian remained calm and indifferent. "'Cause my master trouble? Provoking my master, that would be the real trouble." Chapter 252 The Influence of Sword Venerable Fudao. For the Medicine Valley, the matter of the Nine-Finger Divine Lord was just a small episode, which did not affect the daily life of the valley. Instead, Yang Jian's status grew higher, and other disciples began to show him respect. If Yang Jian becoming Gu An's disciple might have been due to Gu An's favoritism, now even the Nine-Finger Divine Lord favored him, indicating that Yang Jian was truly a genius, merely unrecognizable to the ordinary eye. Early the next morning, Guan rode the Blood Prison Great Saint to Xianxia Valley. In the coming month, all the medicine valleys would enter a period of harvest, which he looked forward to greatly. Time quickly reached the end of summer. A piece of news suddenly stirred the entire immortal cultivation world, sweeping through the supreme sect like a storm. The news came extremely abruptly. Guan had just returned to the Mystic Valley when he heard disciples within the valley discussing. This morning, a cultivator swept across the sky above the Mystic Valley, announcing a grand event that shocked the world. The demonic tribulation originated in the holy land of the Seven-Star Spirit Realm, where Sword Venerable Fudao descended to the realm, slaying demons and reconstructing the Holy Land. The amount of information contained in this event was immense. Even the servant disciples at the bottom of the immortal cultivation world were intensely discussing it. Seeing Guan return, Lu Jiujia immediately approached him to inform him of this matter. I never thought the demonic tribulation was secretly orchestrated by the Holy Land. No wonder they did not intervene in previous calamities, Lu Jiujia said angrily. The scandal of the Seven-Star Spirit Realm reminded him of his previous experiences within the Supreme Sect. Could it be that there is no absolutely pure righteous path in the world? Guan listened attentively, and when he heard Lu Jiujia praise Sword Venerable Fudao as invincible in the world, he smiled and echoed the sentiment, appearing as a worshipper of the Sword Venerable. After chatting for a long time, he hurried to Outer Gate City. Because he had gone to Nianchu Cave Mansion last night, he did not bring the Blood Prison Great Saint. On his way to Outer Gate City, Guan saw the figures of many disciples. Recalling 100 years ago, seeing disciples outside the outer gate was a rare sight, testifying to the current strength of the Supreme Sect. Upon reaching Outer Gate City, it was bustling with people. The noise filled Guan's ears, and almost everyone was excited, with the name Sword Venerable Fudao on everyone's lips. Guan made his way to the heavenly repair platform, where there were even more people. However, this time, disciples of the Law Enforcement Hall of the Supreme Sect were stationed at the edges of the platform, temporarily forbidding anyone from stepping on it, with even Xie being driven off. Guan saw circles of people surrounding the heaven-cutting axe, including Ji Hantian and Gu Zong, with Sua Yijian, the guardian of the heaven-cutting axe, forced to the back, looking dissatisfied. He sensed several familiar auras that he had encountered in the Seven-Star Spirit Realm. They were the geniuses he had saved from the Seven-Star Spirit Realm, now kneeling before the heaven-cutting axe, accompanied by loose immortals who were explaining the transformation of the Seven-Star Spirit Realm. Their sincerity was apparent. The Seven-Star Spirit Realm had a profound heritage. Destroying the higher echelons was not enough to completely dissolve it, but if the remaining members could rebuild a new Seven-Star Spirit Realm for the benefit of all beings, it would be a good thing. Guan's gaze involuntarily turned to Xie. The son of the Demon Emperor had now fully integrated into the Supreme Sect and even became a high-ranking member. Sensing his gaze, Xie glanced back at him, nodding to acknowledge him. Guan nodded in return, feeling somewhat nostalgic, as the two had grown distant over time. He wasn't angry or sad. Some people naturally drifted apart over time, not always from disdain but simply because they had no common topics after a long period without contact. He did not approach further and instead walked away. Besides Xie, he had many friends in Outer Gate City. Though most were drinking buddies who could chat, drink, and enjoy an afternoon together were indeed friends. Guan wanted to hear their praises for Sword Venerable Fudao. It wasn't just the Supreme Sect, all sects under heaven were fervently spreading the news. Sword Venerable Fudao single-handedly ventured into the holy land of the Seven-Star Spirit Realm, slaying immortals within, a feat that was thrilling and awe-inspiring. After this battle, no one dared to question Sword Venerable Fudao anymore. People marveled at his strength, overshadowing discussions of the Seven-Star Spirit Realm's sins. Most cultivators, upon hearing about the Seven-Star Spirit Realm's crimes, at most cursed a few times without feeling disillusioned, as they were accustomed to such events. It was merely that the Spirit Realm's sins were grander. But Sword Venerable Fudao was different. Each of his actions shook the cultivators. Every time they thought they had overestimated him, he would achieve another earth-shattering feat sweeping through a holy land alone. How exaggerated was that? Immortal cultivation was not like martial arts. The higher the realm, the harder it was to take on many opponents at the same level. The Seven-Star Spirit Realm, a holy land hiding immortals, could be swept through by one person. In the following days, Yilan, Zhenqin, Shenzhen, Gu Yu, Zuolin, Wu Ju, and others came to talk to Guan about this event, each extremely excited. Shenzhen, unable to contain her excitement, wanted to write a book about Sword Venerable Fudao but was stopped by Guan, fearing she might offend the Sword Venerable. Though he had heard different people praise Sword Venerable Fudao, Guan still enjoyed it each time, never growing tired of it. After the first wave of excitement passed, the immortal cultivation world began to discuss the character of Sword Venerable Fudao. Despite annihilating the high-ranking members of the Seven-Star Spirit Realm, he offered them a chance, showing the true nature of an immortal to the world. Mighty and reckless, that was a demon. Strong yet benevolent, caring for all beings, that was an immortal. As the entire immortal cultivation world started worshipping Sword Venerable Fudao, many imitators emerged, some copying his name, others his style. One thing was certain: Sword Venerable Fudao was influencing the immortal cultivation world with his actions. One day, Guan arrived at the mountain god temple on the North Sea Mountains. Besides Sage Xianxia, there were 3 other cultivators in the temple, seemingly resting there by chance. The 4 were discussing Sword Venerable Fudao. Sage Xianxia, who mostly stayed there and seldom interacted with people, was shocked upon hearing that Sword Venerable Fudao had forced the 7-star spirit realm to reform. That was the 7-star spirit realm. A behemoth never dared to be provoked or even inquired about by their ancestors of the 3 Pure Ones mountain, almost obliterated by Sword Venerable Fudao. Since the event was confirmed by cultivators of the 7-star spirit realm themselves, many details were revealed, solidifying Sword Venerable Fudao's strength. It was said that Sword Venerable Fudao didn't even use spells or divine skills, but with one sword, he slew 7 immortals of the 7-star spirit realm. Even the 7 Stars Mirror, the spirit realm's supreme treasure, couldn't withstand one of his swords. Sage Xianxia felt like he was listening to a story. Why did he feel that Sword Venerable Fudao was stronger than the mountain god? No, both the mountain god and Sword Venerable Fudao were mighty beings above all others. Perhaps they even knew each other. Sage Xianxia's mind was filled with fantasies. Seeing that the 3 cultivators had no intention of leaving soon, Guan moved to the edge of the North Sea. He stood by the lake, gazing at the vast expanse of water, his divine sense probing the lake bed. Buried at the bottom was the immortal king crown, untouched to this day. Back then, deeming it dangerous, he buried it. Now, having dealt with the divine exotic city and the 7 Stars Mirror, he felt he could understand the immortal king crown. With a wave of his hand, the lake's surface rippled. The immortal king crown and the short flute capable of summoning the 9 Nether 13 evil immediately flew out, landing in his hand. He put the short flute into his storage bag and held the immortal king crown with both hands. Under the sunlight, the dark gold immortal king crown shimmered, the grooves on it giving it an ominous appearance. Guan immediately sent his divine sense into the immortal king crown. Boom! A powerful aura burst forth, ruffling Guan's robes and stirring waves on the lake. It was quite a spectacle. Just as expected. The internal restrictions of the immortal king crown were similar to those of the 7 Stars Mirror, but not as complete. Many restrictions were still recovering, indicating that it was a damaged immortal path supreme treasure, more damaged than the divine exotic city, lacking even the formation of a new immortal spirit. While probing the restrictions, Guan also learned about the immortal king crown. Besides containing immense power, the immortal king crown could also devour chi blood, accelerating its recovery. The evil emperor was drained of chi blood by the immortal king crown, leaving only his soul. The evil emperor was only at the Mahayana realm, unable to withstand the immortal king crown, but now, Guan at the 9th layer of carefree primordial immortal could easily endure it. Guan began to refine the crown's master recognition restrictions, making it his own Dharma treasure. The process was complex, but having dealt with the divine exotic city and the 7 Stars Mirror, it was no longer difficult for Guan. An hour later, Guan successfully made the immortal king crown recognize him as its master. He removed the hairband from his head and wore the immortal king crown, tying his hair beneath it. With a thought, the crown transformed from an emperor's crown to a Taoist's crown. Despite having many grooves, its reduced size made it less eerie, enhancing his ethereal aura. Guan took out the 7 Stars Mirror and began to groom his hair. The more he looked, the more satisfied he felt. As expected, clothes do make the man, and adornments enhance even a Buddha's appearance. Even with his outstanding looks, fine decorations added to his charm. In the future, Pairing it with exquisite robes will enhance my charisma, Guan thought to himself. After all, he was a core formation realm cultivator. Looking good did no harm. Although he aimed to cultivate discreetly, there was no need to live too restrained. If anyone targeted him for his refined appearance and refused to reason, Guan could only reason with them from a ninth-layer carefree primordial immortal's perspective. He wandered by the lakeside, admiring the North Sea scenery until dusk. At dusk, a cultivator flew from the horizon, landing beside him, and asked, "Taoist friend, may I ask which sect you are from?" Guan cast a lifespan detection at the other person. Guaguhong, Core Formation Realm 8th Layer 373/500/950. A very ordinary cultivator. However, 130 years ago, such a person would have been a significant figure to Guan. Guan replied, "I am from the ancient Sky sect. What does Taoist friend require?" Guaguhong, clad in gray, wearing a hat and carrying a long box, looked travel-worn. He glanced at the lake and said, "I heard that the North Sea has shown anomalies lately, with a supreme treasure about to emerge. I wonder if Taoist friend has heard anything about it." Just as Guan was about to respond, Guaguhong suddenly raised his hand, forming a claw with his right hand, aiming at Guan's heart. Chapter 253. The same person, Guaguhong, developed animosity towards you and harbored killing intent. Do you wish to perform lifespan detection on him? Seeing Guaguhong make a move against him, Guan only wanted to laugh. This fellow was truly vicious, striking as soon as the thought of killing arose, indicating that Guaguhong frequently engaged in such actions. Unfortunately, this time he chose the wrong opponent. Boom! As Guaguhong's claw touched Guan's chest, a force exploded, causing dust and stones to fly under Guan's feet and stirring up ripples on the lake, while Guaguhong instantly turned to ashes. Guan raised his hand, brushed his temples, and continued forward, dispersing the ashes that had been Guaguhong with a step. The prompt to seize lifespan was directly ignored by him because the lifespan was too short. The North Sea shimmered with the light of a setting sun, and a large fish leaped at the end of the lake, resembling a crescent moon in midair. The sun set and the moon rose. 2 days later, Guan, in the form of a mountain god, arrived at the mountain god temple. The small figure jumped down from the eaves, and Sage Xianxia, upon hearing the movement, opened his eyes. Seeing it was Guan, he quickly stood up and saluted. "How is the cultivation of medicinal herbs going? I need more herbs for my alchemy." Guan landed on the ground and walked towards the courtyard gate, asking. Sage Xianxia stood behind him, like a mountain, but the posture was very respectful. "Not bad. But I wonder how much you need," Sage Xianxia replied. Then they left the mountain god temple and began to gather medicinal herbs. During this time, Sage Xianxia narrated the events that had occurred recently, even mentioning who had passed by the mountain god temple. He indeed did not lie. As the carefree primordial immortal, Guan could see the past events here, and Sage Xianxia did not hide anything. Guan was not interested in the matters he talked about, but he was satisfied with his attitude. Having guarded this place for decades, Sage Xianxia's attitude remained devout, and Guan felt it necessary to reward him. After Guan finished gathering herbal materials, the two arrived at an open space. He still left half of the herbs for Sage Xianxia. Sage Xianxia wanted to discuss Sword Venerable Fudao with the mountain god, but he did not know how to start, so he remained silent for a moment. "You have been diligent over the years. I am very pleased. Would you like to learn a sword technique?" Guan stood on a rock, looked at Sage Xianxia, and asked with a smile. Upon hearing this, Sage Xianxia was stupefied for a moment and instinctively replied, "Of course I would." Guan raised his hand and pointed his index finger at him remotely. In an instant, Sage Xianxia fell into a daze. He did not know how much time passed. Sage Xianxia gradually woke up. When he opened his eyes, he no longer saw the mountain god's figure. The sunset cast dappled shadows of leaves on his face in the forest. Vast star suppressing heaven boundless sword. Sage Xianxia was shocked. Could such a profound sword technique exist in the world? Moreover, why did this sword technique seem somewhat similar to his Li family's sword technique? However, he had been cultivating at 3 Pure Ones Mountain since childhood. Although he was related to the Taitsong imperial family by blood, he had not delved into the Li family's heritage. The mountain god also knows the sword Dao. I wonder how his swordsmanship compares to sword Venerable Fudeo's, sage Xianxia couldn't help but think. After hearing about sword Venerable Fudeo's prowess, he always speculated about sword Venerable Fudeo's cultivation level unconsciously. He had to admit that sword Venerable Fudeo's personal charm was indeed compelling, making his heart yearn. Remorseful. Remorseful. How could I be disloyal to the mountain god? Sage Xianxia struggled to suppress his inner turmoil, but another thought arose within him, a thought even he could hardly believe. Could the mountain god and sword Venerable Fudao be the same person? Before the overseas cultivators invaded, how could there have been two super-existences above the seven-star spirit realm simultaneously on the continent? The news of sword Venerable Fudao vanquishing the immortals of the seven-star spirit realm continued to spread. In the following days, the supreme sect in the seven-star spirit realm announced their friendship, pledging to protect the people of the mainland together henceforth, setting an example for the righteous path, which established the supreme sect as the foremost sect in the immortal cultivation world of the three dynasties. This event greatly enhanced the supreme sect's influence, attracting an increasing number of people to join. The autumn wind blew through the supreme sect yet failed to bring desolation there. In the mountains and forests, Guan sat on the back of the blood prison great saint, turning his head to look at the group of young boys and girls that had just brushed past them, feeling nostalgic. This group of youngsters was led by two adult men, one a village chief and the other a teacher, on their way to the supreme sect to seek the immortal path. Such a scene was rare, especially in the mountains between Mystic Valley and Tianya Valley. Guan looked forward again, asked casually, "What do you think of the supreme sect nowadays?" The blood prison great saint thought for a while, then said, "Pretty good. It seems to be improving, and it indeed qualifies as the righteous path. Whether it be Medicine Valley or the Outer Gate City, the atmosphere is great." He knew that the supreme sect's current prosperity was all due to the one on his back. If the supreme sect ever displeased Guan, today's glory could turn into an illusion at any moment. Having been a steed for a long time, the blood prison great saint developed some feelings for the supreme sect. Although there were some unsavory characters in Medicine Valley, most were not bad overall. Compared to the lower realm sect he came from, the supreme sect was more harmonious. Apart from not being strong enough, it matched his ideal place for immortals. He could also feel the supreme sect's rising fortune lately and believed that in 1,000 years, its strength would be immeasurable. "Qualifying as the righteous path is good enough," Guan said with a soft laugh. One man and one ox walked through the mountains, gradually disappearing into the depths of the forest. An ancient hour later, Guan rode the blood prison great saint leisurely into Tianya Valley. He sensed the presence of others in the valley. Li Xiandao had arrived. Guan remained unhurried, leisurely progressing forward. Li Xiandao was in a courtyard, drinking tea, with a young boy practicing swordsmanship behind him. The boy seemed to be only 7 or 8, yet his sword movements were fluid and very nimble. Luo Hun stood nearby, his eyes fixed on the boy with the sword, worried he might hurt himself. When Li Xiandao saw Guan from afar, a smile appeared on his face. "This kid has become quite ostentatious, but he knows how to enjoy life," Li Xiandao said with amused disbelief. Guan rode a majestic demon pet, wearing a luxurious and exquisite blue robe with an extravagant dark gold crown that made him look very much like an immortal lord of the mortal world. LV Xian, who was meditating at the mountain peak, also saw Guan and was dazzled by his attire. For some reason, there was an aura about Guan that made him uneasy, an instinctual unease he couldn't quite explain. Seeing Li Zuando's gaze, Guan patted the bull's back, making Blood Prison Great Saint quicken its pace. Soon, Blood Prison Great Saint reached the courtyard. Guan dismounted and quickly walked into the yard. "Uncle, long time no see." Guan raised his hand in a salute. Out of habit, he cast a lifespan detection on the young boy. Li Ling Tian, Energy Cultivation Realm 4th Layer 8/110/8999. A lifespan limit of 8,999 years? That was something. Guan was curious, but his face remained calm. "Indeed, it's been a long time. I've been here for 2 days, waiting specifically to see you before I leave," Li Xiandao said with a laugh. Nowadays, he was in high spirits. The three dynasties' contention continued, but everyone could feel the Taizong dynasty's dominance. In the coming years, Li Xiandao was likely to unify the land, a feat no one had accomplished for thousands of years. Li Xuando's cultivation level also advanced rapidly, nearing the 9th layer of the unification realm. This guy could catch up with LV Batian within a century. The two started to chat. Guan talked about his medicine valley in response to Li Xuando's concern, mentioning trivial matters, which Li Xiandao listened to intently. Aside from Gu An's relationship with Li Ya, Li Xiandao was very satisfied with how Guan managed Tianya Valley over the years. After chatting for a while, Li Xiandao started to tease Guan about his current appearance, which was vastly different from before. One must enjoy life when it's going well. Unlike you and senior brother Li, who can stir the world's affairs, I can also live a glamorous life in my small world, can't I? Guan laughed, touching the immortal king crown on his head as he spoke. Li Xiandao laughed. It seems your crown lacks gems. Need my help? Or shall I send you a better one? A better one? I doubt you can afford it. Guan shook his head to decline courteously, and Li Xiandao did not insist. He waved to Li Lingtian, who immediately ran over, curiously watching Guan looking at his small face. Guan couldn't help but think of 15-year-old Li Ya. Their brows and eyes were somewhat similar. This is senior brother Gu, who has the best relationship with your brother Li Ya. Li Xiandao introduced to Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian immediately saluted Guan, in a very mature and adorable manner. Guan was about to think of what to give as a meeting gift when Li Lingtian asked, Senior brother Gu, I heard you wrote Journey to the West. Have you met Sun Wukong? Guan was stunned, glancing at Luo Hun, who looked away. Li Xiandao kept his smile, obviously knowing this all along. It reminded him of the time he had asked Guan about investiture of the gods. Guan suddenly thought, had Li Xiandao known he was Panan all along and tried to probe him intentionally? But that no longer mattered. Yes, in my dream. In reality, I accepted an apprentice named Yang Jian, Guan replied, patting Li Lingshan's head with a smile. True Lord Erlang Yang Jian? Is he powerful? Can I spar with him? Li Lingtian became excited, clenching his little fists. Guan laughed. Of course, but you'll have to grow up first. Li Lingtian nodded obediently, then like a little adult, said, Senior brother Gu, you must ensure your apprentice trains hard. My uncle says I have the best life grid in the world, and I fear your apprentice might not be a match for me. Li Xiandao gave him a stern look. Your father always taught you to be modest. Li Lingtian complained, Uncle said so, and Mother said everything in this world was created for me, so I can be confident. Li Xuando's face turned visibly displeased. Guan found it amusing and said, All right, senior brother Gu will make sure he trains hard. Promise me you'll train well and not fight with others before sparring with my apprentice. Can you do that? Chapter 254 True Yang Jian, False Sun Wukong. Hearing Gu An's words, Li Lingtian didn't think too much and directly agreed. Li Xiandao was very unhappy, and scolded Li Lingtian. As a result, Li Lingtian got angry and started to talk back. Next came the lesson with a slap. Li Lingtian was picked up by Li Xiandao, hung over his leg, and his butt was spanked harshly. This scene reminded Guan of scenes from his childhood in his past life. The memories of his past life were hazy, as if they were distant recollections. Guan didn't expect Li Xiandao to have this side. He wondered whether Li Ya had been educated in this way when he was a child. However, he could see that Li Lingshan's mother seemed very unusual, and Li Xuando's words about his mother showed considerable helplessness. Guan looked at Li Lingshan's karma and peered into his past. Soon, Guan understood some information. Li Lingshan's mother came from the ocean, with the surname Yang, from a great family. For her, Li Xiandao had deposed the former queen and made her the new queen. He also decided to cultivate Li Lingtian as the crown prince. After peering into Li Lingshan's past, Guan sighed to himself. Having a strong background as a mother indeed allowed for recklessness. However, Li Lingshan's life grid was also extraordinary. He was born overseas, and during his birth, there were thunderstorms that attracted the protection of great cultivators in the family. After his birth, Li Xiandao officially married Empress Yang, and the Yang family even dispatched special guards to protect Li Lingshan's growth. Currently, there were already 2 Mahayana cultivators guarding from afar. Previously, Mahayana cultivators were rare, but now they continuously flowed into the immortal cultivation world of the 3 dynasties. Perhaps the Yang family also saw the potential of this continent and made an advance bet, with Li Xiandao, who was about to unify the three dynasties, being a good candidate. Li Lingtian was indeed extraordinary. No matter how much Li Xiandao hit him, he didn't cry. Instead, he stubbornly glared at Li Xiandao. This boy was simply a little demon king, and in the future, Li Xiandao and Li Ya would probably suffer. Uncle, that's enough. The child can be taught slowly in the future. Right now, he didn't actually do anything wrong. It was just his way of speaking. I didn't feel offended. Guan spoke up, giving Li Xiandao a way out. After hearing this, Li Xiandao looked embarrassed. He looked at Guan and said, "This boy is naturally strong and has a small mind. It's better not to let him compete with your disciple, lest he really remembers it." Li Lingtian climbed down from his father's leg and hid beside Guan, grabbing Guan's arm and sticking his tongue out at Li Xiandao. Guan could feel Li Lingshan's strength. This boy was only 8 years old, yet it seemed he could easily crush a stone. "It's okay. My disciple is also very strong," Guan said with a smile. Upon hearing this, Li Xiandao could only shake his head and not persuade further. He thought that in this world, only Hao could be compared to his youngest son. Even LV Xian was not as talented as Li Lingtian. After that, Li Xiandao changed the topic to talk about sword venerable Fu Dao. At the mention of this topic, Guan became excited and discussed it eagerly with him. Li Xiandao thought he was also an admirer of sword venerable Fu Dao, which was quite normal. Even he, the emperor of Taizong, felt his blood surge upon hearing about sword venerable Fu Dao's deeds, much less ordinary cultivators with low cultivation levels. After chatting for an ancient hour, Li Xiandao left with Li Lingtian. Before leaving, Li Lingtian waved at Guan and said, "Senior brother Gu, don't let Yang Jian forget this matter. When I grow up, I will come to duel with him." Guan nodded with a smile, secretly looking forward to Li Lingshan's defeat. In terms of ultimate lifespan, Yang Jian's was higher. In terms of age, Yang Jian was older. And in terms of teachers, could Li Lingtian find a master like the carefree primordial immortal? Given that Li Xiandao treated him well, he would properly guide Li Lingtian to prevent him from straying onto the wrong path. After collecting the medicinal herbs, Guan rode the Blood Prison Great Saint to leave. After traveling 100 miles away from Tianya Valley, the Blood Prison Great Saint said, "Master, that boy's qi blood is not simple." He could tell at a glance that Li Lingshan's bones were extraordinary and his qi fortune was special. "Indeed, not simple. But do you think he can compare to Jenner?" Guan asked casually. "Definitely not. There is no one more monstrous than that boy." Mentioning Yang Jian, the Blood Prison Great Saint sighed deeply. He watched Yang Jian transcend the mundane, which made him revere Guan even more. It was Guan who discovered Yang Jian. Otherwise, Yang Jian might have been as mediocre as other disciples in the valley for a lifetime. "The cultivation technique I taught you must be diligently practiced. 1,000 years later, this world might be a completely different place. Even if Mahayana remains powerful, its status will surely be lower than now. Master, rest assured, I will not disgrace you." "It's not about disgracing me. You cultivate for yourself." "Hee, I plan to follow you for life." "You, Oxhead, are you planning on sticking with me?" "I hope Master will show mercy." The collapse of the Seven-Star Spirit Realm caused greater turmoil over the ocean. When Guan went to Immortal Seeking Island, many people were discussing it. At the private gathering of Sage Tanghai that he attended, those cultivators were also amazed by Sword Venerable Fu Dao's strength. After this battle, the name of Sword Venerable Fu Dao spread across the sea, gaining wider fame than on the continent. The turmoil at sea didn't affect the continent. The Star Sea congregations and the surrounding major forces did not dare touch the continent where Sword Venerable Fu Dao resided. Instead, many cultivators rushed to the continent seeking opportunities. In this context, the continent welcomed peace. Gu An's life also became more stable. He focused on planting medicinal herbs, waiting for the outer world cave to yield a harvest. During the waiting period, he continuously expanded the cave, planting more medicinal herbs. Nowadays, he could move the outer world cave, so he felt more secure in planting. Tianqing and Tianbai helped Tianyao with many affairs, and there had been no incidents in the outer world cave and Yanchu cave. In the blink of an eye, time flew by. 10 years passed. This year, Xiaochuan released his primordial reincarnation skill, breaking through to the Foundation establishment realm. His ultimate lifespan reached 286 years, far less than Yi Lan's. This was related to his attitude towards cultivation. He was not as diligent as Yi Lan. No matter what, Xiaochuan could at least live another 100 years. After releasing his cultivation level, Xiaochuan bade farewell to Gu En. He planned to return to his hometown and experience the life of an ordinary person again. If possible, he would have children. Although Gu En did not see him off, he protected Xiaochuan along the way with his divine sense, fearing any mishap. Half a month later, when Xiaochuan returned to his hometown, Gu En temporarily shifted his attention away from him. In the middle of summer, the Third Medicine Valley welcomed visitors. Gu En personally greeted them, and saw a man and woman walking from the valley entrance. Xianxia, Divinity Transformation Stage 5th Level 318/1200/1360. Li Lingtian, Foundation Establishment Realm 9th Layer 18/350/8999. Gu An's gaze fell on Xianxia. She was Li Ya's mother's younger sister. When the Ephemera sect caused trouble back then, she was involved. After protecting Gu En for a while, she left. Over the years, Gu En would occasionally catch glimpses of her with his divine sense. She wandered all over, cultivating in various places. She occasionally encountered trouble, but on the whole lived fairly well. Xianxia was dressed in red, with a treasure sword at her waist. Her face was still as delicate. She seemed a bit dazed seeing Gu En from afar. The boy she once needed to protect had now become a core formation realm cultivator, and his appearance had also greatly changed. Following Xianxia, Li Lingtian glanced around, seemingly looking for someone. The 18-year-old Li Lingtian wore white clothes with gold patterns and a golden dragon pearl crown on his head. He had an elegant demeanor. Honestly, Gu En thought he was more handsome than Li Ya. The arrival of these two attracted many disciples' attention, but seeing Gu En personally step up to greet them, they did not approach. "Xianxia, long time no see," Gu En said with a smile as he approached the two. Xianxia eyed Gu En and said, "It's been years, you boy. Your aura has changed greatly. You finally look like a cultivator." Gu En smiled and said, "Not too bad." He looked at Li Lingtian, pretended to hesitate and asked, "You are?" Li Lingtian also eyed Gu En, then laughed and said, "Senior brother Gu, it's me, Li Lingtian. I have come to fulfill my appointment." After saying this, his gaze drifted into the distance, searching for Yang Jian. Gu En shook his head and chuckled, then invited Xianxia and Li Lingtian to sit down and chat. However, Li Lingtian insisted on a duel first. Gu En had no choice but to call Yang Jian. Then he took them out of the valley to find a secluded place for the duel. Li Lingtian thought Gu En was worried about losing face, so he did not refuse. Along the way, Li Lingtian kept staring at Yang Jian with eager eyes, making Yang Jian uncomfortable. 10 years had passed, and Yang Jian's cultivation level had reached the 8th layer of the core formation realm. His apparent cultivation level brought up to the foundation establishment realm. Gu En walked in front, chatting with Xianxia, catching up on old times. She had many things to say upon seeing Gu En again. She didn't come with Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian had insisted on coming when he overheard Li Xiandao arrange for her to come to the supreme sect. "Empress Yang also has the surname Yang, I wonder?" Gu En suddenly asked. Xianxia glared at him and said, "Don't ask. We can't compare to the Empress Yang family." Clearly, although they shared the same surname, they were not related. Li Ya's mother, Ms. Yang, was the woman Li Xiandao once loved most. He even gave her the heavenly resident sword. Now Li Lingshan's mother also had the surname Yang, making Gu En speculate a lot. Could it be that Li Xiandao was drawn to Empress Yang because of her last name rather than her background? By the way, that boy Li Lingtian has no sense of control. If he hurts your disciple, don't mind. Don't worry, I will be watching carefully and intervene promptly to prevent serious injury. Xianxia reminded. Gu En smiled and said, "It's fine. They are both in the foundation establishment realm. It's normal to get hurt during a duel." If Li Lingtian was about to be beaten to death, he would also intervene. Behind them, Li Lingtian looked at Yang Jian and finally spoke. "You are called Yang Jian? Why this name?" Yang Jian replied, "Because I liked reading Investiture of the Gods and Journey to the West when I was young." Coincidentally, I also like it. But I prefer Sun Wukong. Is it Yang Jian versus Sun Wukong today? I just don't know if you are the real Yang Jian. Li Lingtian said with a grin. Yang Jian glanced at him and said, I also like Sun Wukong. Whether I'm the real Yang Jian, this fake Sun Wukong will soon know. Chapter 255. Vulnerable Gu An and Yang and I, walking in front, could hear the tension in the voices of Yang Jian and Li Lingtian. Guan didn't mind. After all, it was Li Lingtian who first provoked Yang Jian. While he taught Yang Jian to be humble, he couldn't allow him to develop a meek personality that got bullied. Yang and I, on the other hand, didn't expect Gu An's disciple to have such a tough character. From what she remembered, Guan had always had a gentle disposition. However, against Li Lingtian, being too tough could be a disadvantage. Although Yang and I didn't like Li Lingtian, she had to admit that his talent was extraordinarily strong, almost like an immortal descended to the mortal realm. After a while, the four of them reached the woods. Without waiting for Gu An and Yang and I to speak, Yang Jian and Li Lingtian had already squared off. Li Lingtian asked, What rules do you need? He could see that Yang Jian's cultivation level was lower than his, so he wanted Yang Jian to set the rules. Li Lingtian never liked bullying others. Yang Jian looked at him calmly and said, Let's just fight directly. I'll show mercy. Although Yang Jian didn't know Li Lingtian's identity, he had to show Guan respect since Yang and I and Guan seemed to be on cordial terms. Hearing Yang Jian's words, Li Lingtian was momentarily stunned. This guy really didn't give in. Li Lingtian didn't think much of it. After all, this was his first battle since he started cultivating, something he had anticipated for 10 years. Then let's fight. Li Lingtian let out a loud laugh, moved his feet, and a fierce wind scattered the surrounding leaves. He dashed towards Yang Jian like lightning, his legs sweeping out like a long whip, exceedingly fierce. Yang Jian reacted just as quickly, almost instantly lifting his knee to block Li Lingtian's sweeping leg. Li Lingtian's eyes widened, and his smile became ferocious. Yang Jian's strength excited him greatly. Such fast reactions, Yang and I said. Standing next to Gu and Yang Jian surprised her. Both Li Lingtian and Yang Jian, with merely their speed and reactions, had already surpassed Foundation Establishment realm cultivators. Yang and I even thought she wasn't this strong when she was in the core formation realm. It turned out Guan really had confidence. Li Lingtian leveraged the force to jump back, his body stretching in mid-air. He punched out, and spiritual power formed a golden dragon shadow that charged at Yang Jian. A dragon's roar exploded, echoing through the woods. Yang Jian didn't retreat. Instead, he advanced, dispersing the dragon's shadow with a wave of his hand and stepping up to Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian's pupils contracted suddenly. Bang! Yang Jian struck Li Lingtian's abdomen with his elbow, causing Li Lingtian's eyes to widen and his mouth to open, spitting out blood. Immediately, Yang Jian's fists and kicks followed like a storm, beating Li Lingtian's body severely, making him feel like a sandbag, unable to stay grounded. This is impossible. Yang Ni's eyes widened in disbelief. She knew Li Lingtian's strength well. Although he hadn't sparred with others, Li Xiandao had prepared many puppets as grindstones for him. In her view, Li Lingtian had already surpassed the Foundation Establishment realm. If he had not spent so much time practicing spells and divine skills, his cultivation would have reached the core formation realm by now. Such a monstrous talent being beaten so completely? It was unbelievable. Yang Jian's fist and kick speed even made this divinity transformation realm cultivator quite shocked. As Yang Jian engaged in battle, she could sense an extremely dangerous aura from him, something she had never felt before. Although Yang Jian's cultivation level couldn't threaten her, she felt an inexplicable reverence. Seeing that Li Lingtian was about to be beaten to death, Yang and I was about to intervene but was stopped by Guan. Don't worry, Jenner knows his limits. This is a good opportunity to temper this prince's character. Otherwise, he'll create too many enemies in the immortal cultivation world with his arrogance, Guan said with a smile. Yang and I glanced at him, looking at his profile, and felt somewhat dazed. Why was he so calm? She suddenly felt that Guan must have gone through a lot over the years she was away. The key question was how such a talented individual could have taken Guan as his master? Yang and I turned her gaze to Yang Jian. She had to admit, at this moment, Yang Jian looked like the true genius, and Li Lingtian appeared so incapable, completely unable to display his talent. Soon, Yang Jian landed, raising his right leg to use his foot to catch Li Lingshan's body. At this moment, Li Lingshan's clothes were torn, his hair disheveled, his face covered in blood, and his body appeared extremely feeble. Yang Jian slowly placed Li Lingtian down with one foot. Throughout, his expression didn't change, as if this battle hadn't given him any sense of achievement. Li Lingtian lay on the ground, barely opening his eyes. Yang Jian stood in front of him, looking down at him. For the first time, Li Lingtian saw someone from this angle, feeling almost crushed inside. He hadn't expected the battle to turn out this way. Yang Jian was faster, his fists and feet heavier, and his cultivation level was lower. He could feel that Yang Jian didn't even use spiritual power, relying solely on speed and qi to beat him. Why was it like this? Could it be that I am not the most talented in the world? Li Lingshan's eyes lost their sparkle, and he buried his face in the ground, his shoulders trembling. He cried. He couldn't accept his defeat. Guan walked over, and Yang Jian quickly saluted him. Seeing Yang Jian's respect towards Guan, Yang Ni's expression became more peculiar. Guan squatted beside Li Lingtian and said softly, "Your talent is indeed rare, but you must always maintain a reverence for the world. Remember, there are always people stronger than you. If your opponent today had been your enemy, you would be dead." Li Lingtian clenched his fists, his body trembling even more violently. Yang Ni said nothing. After the initial shock, she even felt somewhat gloating. The whole journey, Li Lingshan's arrogance was unbearable for her, and seeing someone put him in his place was rather satisfying. She didn't like Li Lingtian, and had even less fondness for Empress Yang. Yang Jian remained silent. He felt he wasn't qualified to teach Li Lingtian. The only reason he was stronger was that he had a master that others didn't have. Guan took out an elixir and fed it to Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian slowly got up, turned towards Yang Jian, and even though his face was bloody, his expression was still stubborn. "I won't accept this. I will win next time," Li Lingtian said through gritted teeth. Yang Jian raised his hand, scaring Li Lingtian into retreating behind Guan. But on closer inspection, Yang Jian was simply saluting him. Li Lingtian, both relieved and embarrassed, wished he could find a hole to crawl into. Yang Ni laughed. "With your current state, you still dare to challenge him again? Perhaps you should focus on becoming stronger first." Li Lingtian took a deep breath and looked at Guan. "Senior brother Gu, can I stay in your medicine valley?" He wanted to see how Yang Jian usually trained. All his life, he hadn't been lazy, and he even had no friends, dedicating himself entirely to cultivation. But this complete defeat was difficult to accept. "No problem, if you have any issues in the valley, go to Jenner. After all, he's technically your junior," Guan said with a smile, causing Li Lingtian to brighten up. Yang Jian felt a headache coming on. 10 years ago, he had heard Guan mention Li Lingtian, which gave him pressure. Now it seemed Li Lingtian was just like this. His real opponent was still that senior brother he had never met. So, the four of them left the woods and returned to the third medicine valley. The disciples in the valley were curious about what had happened when they saw the previously high-spirited Li Lingtian looking so pitiful. Yang Ni didn't stay long. After chatting with Guan for a while, she flew off to the inner sect, seemingly carrying out a mission. After handing Li Lingtian over to Yang Jian, Guan went upstairs to read. Until evening. Li Lingtian, now dressed in clean clothes, walked out of his courtyard, not seeing Yang Jian, so he wandered around. Soon, he was attracted by some disciples playing chess and went over to watch. Unfortunately, neither Go nor Chinese chess interested him. His eyes were caught by the passing Blood Prison Great Saint. Blood Prison Great Saint was cursing, frustrated after failing to catch a white spirit rat. Li Lingtian approached and asked, "You Oxhead, you seem pretty unique. What's your name?" Blood Prison Great Saint glared at him and replied, "Bull Demon King, ever heard of it?" After speaking, Blood Prison Great Saint continued on, ignoring Li Lingtian. He remembered Li Lingtian. 10 years ago, he thought Li Lingtian might be a remarkable figure. Who knew he'd be helpless in front of Yang Jian? Useless. Li Lingtian stood there, mumbling, "There's Yang Jian and Bull Demon King. Is Master Pewdie also here?" If there was no Master Pewdie, how could Yang Jian be so strong? But he didn't think of Guan as Master Beauty because Guan didn't seem that strong. On a hot summer day, inside the imperial study, Li Xiandao sat at the desk, frowning as he read the letters on the desk. After a while, a figure walked quickly in, came to the desk, and bowed deeply. This person was clad in intricate armor, exuding charisma, with a stern face and fierce eyes. This was Yi Yan, a disciple taken by Guan in the Mystic Valley. After a century, Yi Yan was no longer the ordinary youth he once was but a general with a formidable presence. Li Xiandao asked, "How much do you know about your master?" Yi Yan frowned and asked, "My master? What happened to him?" He didn't answer immediately. Although he hadn't seen Guan for a long time, he remembered the grace given to him and wanted to protect his master even against Li Xiandao. Li Xiandao waved his hand, sending the letters on the desk to Yi Yan. Yi Yan took them and read carefully. His expression changed dramatically, showing shock. How is this possible? The Crown Prince's prowess is by no means simple. Yet he was utterly defeated by a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator? Yang Jian, my master's disciple? Yi Yan muttered to himself. He had met Li Lingtian and even taught him spear techniques. Li Lingshan's talent once made him lament the unfairness of the heavens. He even suspected Li Lingtian was an immortal reincarnate. Last year, Li Lingtian had shown power comparable to the core formation realm. How could such a talent lose to a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator? Li Xiandao pondered. With Gu An's abilities, he couldn't have taught such a disciple alone. Do you think someone more powerful is behind him? Though often troubled by Li Lingshan's arrogance, Li Xiandao hadn't expected such a crushing defeat. It left him feeling uneasy. Chapter 256 Former Lord of Divine Exotic City in the Imperial Study. Upon hearing Li Zuando's words, Yi Yan replied, "I am not sure either. When I left that year, I hadn't seen Master make acquaintances with any great cultivator." He was also puzzled in his heart. He felt that Mystic Valley had extraordinary chi fortune. Su Han, who had disturbed the Taizong dynasty's immortal cultivation world decades ago, was his senior brother. To this day, whenever he thought of Su Han, he couldn't help but feel emotional. Back then, he, Zhan Qin, and Su Han followed Guan to the Third Medicine Valley to cultivate. Who could have imagined that they would each achieve such accomplishments? Although Su Han's life or death was unknown, the commotion he caused had already proven his strength. They were no longer the insignificant minor cultivators they once were. After hearing his words, Li Xiandao did not speak further but fell into deep thought. For a while, the imperial study was engulfed in silence. Each harbored their own thoughts, wondering if there was a powerful figure behind Guan. After a long time, Li Xiandao spoke. "You may leave now. The negotiations with the great Jiang dynasty are nearing conclusion. You need to prepare to go to sea. This matter concerns the 1,000-year plan of Taizong, and it must not be taken lightly." "Yes." Yi Yan accepted the order, then saluted and left. Li Xiandao gazed out the window, his eyes wandering. "I must advance to Mystic Heart soon, or many things cannot proceed." Li Xiandao thought silently. Compared to Li Lingshan's achievements, he cared more about his own. To this day, only LV Xian knew that he had hidden his cultivation level, and now even LV Xian was unsure of his true level. Li Zuando's ambitions were grand. He wanted to be an immortal emperor, eternally in power. For this, he needed strength to protect himself. Li Lingtian suffering this setback was also good. It would make him more diligent in his cultivation, ensuring he didn't create trouble for his imperial authority. Thinking of this, Li Xiandao smiled. "Yang Jian, not bad. I will look forward to your future." Under the blue sky and white clouds, among the mountains, Liya was meditating on the lake. He was bare-chested, surrounded by mist. His hair floated continuously, and his whole body exuded a powerful aura, causing the lake's surface to shimmer like a sword's light. A figure leaped over the towering mountains, descending from the sky and landing on the lake, causing a flurry of ripples. His feet did not touch the lake's surface. It was Zhang Buku. Zhang Buku wore a robe made of animal pelts, his long hair reaching his waist. His entire demeanor was wild. Hands on his hips, he laughed and said, "Brother Li, and how has caused another big commotion recently? Do you want to know?" Liya did not open his eyes, answering, "Go ahead, what has he done now?" The three of them joined the Star Sea congregations together. Although Liya held the divine exotic city and was renowned within the sect, his growth speed could not compare to Anhao. Anhao was the greatest genius in the history of the Supreme Sect, and it was the same in the Star Sea congregations. He made all other geniuses pale in comparison. He has mastered the flame primordial treasure body. It is said that this physique could dominate the mortal world in ancient times. Although the Star Sea congregations have the method of cultivation, he is the first person to succeed in tens of thousands of years. Jianghu sighed. Since ingesting a demon core, his talent had also transformed, making him a genius. But compared to Anhao, he still fell short. When they met, it was always awkward since they both came from the Supreme Sect. They had to be polite, but Jianghu disliked Anhao. This dislike had no reason. For some reason, looking at Anhao's face always made him feel annoyed, as if he had seen Anhao somewhere before. Liya opened his eyes, frowning. He had always regarded Anhao as his goal, but the more he chased, the more powerless he felt. Anhao seemed to be the protagonist of this world, making everyone else fade into insignificance. The flame primordial treasure body. He had heard of it. Once mastered, the person would transform into a radiant sun, invincible in the world. Jianghu continued, "The sect is planning to explore the sea-breaking rift today. I have signed up. Are you going?" Liya shook his head and said, "I still need to improve my cultivation level. I don't want to go." "Of course, if you want me to accompany you, it's not impossible." Jianghu snorted, "I don't want you to come with me. Being with you is too unlucky. I mainly came to tell you this so you wouldn't be looking for me." Liya glared at him and replied irritably, "Hurry up and go, you're the unlucky one." The two started bickering again. When Jianghu mentioned Guan, Liya conceded. Jianghu left satisfied. Liya watched Jianghu's departing figure, cursing silently that when Jianghu returned, he would give him a good lesson. Another year of the Spring Festival had arrived. In the third Medicine Valley, the disciples were busy hanging lanterns and decorations. Li Lingtian was also bustling with the disciples, mainly following Yang Jian. Seeing Yang Jian busy, he had no choice but to follow. In the pavilion, Guan was discussing a peculiar book with Xianxia. The two were expressing their views, arguing vehemently, neither convincing the other. Suddenly, it seemed Guan sensed something, frowning. Xianxia noticed the change in his expression, waved her hand in front of him, and asked, "What? Are you angry?" Guan shook his head and said, "No, I just thought of something and got distracted." "Thinking about something? You don't respect me." Xianxia glared, angry. She stood up, put the book on the table into her storage bag, and then left. Guan did not stop her. He couldn't be bothered to cater to her whims. He sat back in the treasured chair that Xianxia had occupied earlier, communicating with the divine exotic immortal spirit in his heart. "Are you sure?" he asked in his heart. The voice of the divine exotic immortal spirit sounded, "Sure, it's definitely his aura. Although I have never seen him, the city retains his aura. I cannot be mistaken. The former master of divine exotic city is in that rift." The rift it mentioned was the one that spanned the ocean. Its appearance had even led to rumors of a world-destroying sea tide. The divine exotic immortal spirit had just sensed the aura of the former master of divine exotic city from that rift. Guan wanted to know the former master's cultivation level from it, but unfortunately, it did not know. In its words, the divine exotic city had been born after it left that person's hands. This was true for all immortal spirit treasures. They could only serve one master. Once the master perished, the immortal spirit would also vanish. At this moment, Liya was still in the Star Sea congregations, far from the ocean rift. Only the divine exotic immortal spirit sensed that aura. When Guan looked at the rift, he saw many cultivators fleeing from it, as if something terrifying was chasing them. When his divine sense approached the rift, he felt a powerful aura that deterred him from recklessly probing further. The presence that he could feel was strong. There might be a carefree primordial immortal hidden in the rift. Guan withdrew his divine sense, no longer paying attention to it. The world had countless major forces, and there were numerous great cultivators. As long as they didn't threaten him, he was too lazy to meddle. After all, that rift was extremely remote from the mainland, separated by 2 continents and countless islands. Guan chatted with the divine exotic immortal spirit for a while longer. Once he was sure that the former master could no longer control divine exotic city, he felt relieved. He got up and went downstairs. As he walked down the stairs, he saw the busy disciples in the valley, and a smile appeared on his face. The calamities in this world never cease, but if they can be delayed by a few decades, it can grant a generation a stable life. Guan thought this and then walked towards the place where the most disciples were gathered. Under an old tree, dozens of disciples were gathered, discussing fervently. Among them were 2 people playing Go, one of whom was the 9-Finger Divine Lord. The other was the best Go player in the valley, one of the senior disciples in the valley, respectfully addressed as Elder Lu. He had stayed in the 3rd Medicine Valley for 100 years, from youth to old age. Because of his modest cultivation talent, he never thought of leaving the valley. At this moment, Elder Lu was frowning deeply, with his right hand holding the Go piece trembling, hesitant to play. The 9-Finger Divine Lord's expression was calm, but he was internally sighing in relief. This old man's Go skills were too formidable. He almost lost. Since playing Go in the 3rd Medicine Valley, the 9-Finger Divine Lord had become fascinated with the game, feeling that it contained infinite mysteries similar to the essence of the heavenly Tao. Therefore, he frequently came to the 3rd Medicine Valley to play. Go was invented by Gu En and had yet to be widely promoted. Currently, it was only popular in the Medicine Valley. Guan created Go merely out of boredom. He did not intend to promote it. Even in his past life, he was simply an enthusiast of the game. At this moment, Guan squeezed through the crowd and saw Elder Lu sweating profusely. He couldn't help but say, "Xiao Lu, why don't I play for you? Shameless wandering immortal, bullying my Medicine Valley mortals? Intolerable." Elder Lu looked up and saw it was Guan, then quickly stepped aside. The other disciples were excited. In their minds, Guan was the best Go player since he invented the game. As Guan sat down, the 9-Finger Divine Lord smiled and said, "Little friend, do you think there is still a chance in this game?" Guan laughed. "If you came 3 moves later, there would indeed be no hope." The smile on the 9-Finger Divine Lord's face froze instantly. A wandering immortal's prowess in Go lay in their ability to simulate countless possibilities in an instant, choosing the best moves. From the first move Elder Lu made, the 9-Finger Divine Lord had already seen the outcome. Knowing the rules of Go, the 9-Finger Divine Lord could surely win against ordinary folks. However, it was precisely because he could simulate countless possibilities that he appreciated the subtleties of the game. He did not play Go to win but to experience the process and comprehend his own Taoist sorcery within the game. He did not expect Guan to see through his strategy. Under his gaze, Guan placed a piece on the board, turning the tides instantly, making him frown. He immediately placed a piece, and Guan followed suit. Unlike others who played slowly, these 2 played at lightning speed. They were competing in their ability to simulate. The disciples around them watched, barely daring to breathe. Li Lingtian also squeezed in to join the excitement. Seeing the aura of the 2 playing, he was interested in Go for the first time. One piece after another, the sound of pieces being placed formed a melody, exuding a sharp aura. Suddenly, the 9-Finger Divine Lord paused, withdrew his hand hanging in the air, placed the piece down and said, "I lost." As soon as he said this, cheers erupted around them. Elder Lu wiped the sweat off his forehead, revealing a broad smile. The 9-Finger Divine Lord stared at Guan, as if trying to see through him. Though this boy had an extraordinary aura, his cultivation and physique were not impressive. How did he manage to win? Chapter 257. Variables. Night fell, and fireworks rose in the 3rd Medicine Valley, brilliant and beautiful. The pavilion area was filled with dining tables, with over 1,000 people toasting and drinking, making for a spectacular scene. Guan ignored the 9-Finger Divine Lord's gaze and chatted with Yu Yingying next to him, inquiring about Lu Lingjun's situation. He had actually always been following up on Lu Lingjun. Lu Lingjun's Ascension sect had already been established and had joined forces with the Supreme Sect to occupy an island. They were currently busy mining spirit mines. Overall, things were going smoothly. Yu Yingying had always been in correspondence with Lu Lingjun. In the immortal cultivation world, letters were either exchanged using spells or dharma treasures or delivered by demon pets. Yu Yingying came from the Star Sea congregations and had communication means connected with the ocean. After chatting for a while, Guan took the opportunity to leave and went to the Mystic Valley to visit the disciples there. It wasn't until late at night when the disciples returned to their rooms that he went to the Nianchu cave to celebrate the festival with Tian Yaoer and the other two girls. Unlike others, Tian Yaoer and the two girls no longer had family. They would follow him for their whole lives, so every year during festivals, Guan would never forget them. While enjoying the delicacies, Guan was also concerned about Tian Yaoer's cultivation. Tian Yaoer had now reached the 6th level of the divinity transformation realm. It was not slow progress at all. She was already talented, and with the continuous consumption of medicinal herbs and elixirs, her cultivation progressed rapidly. More than her cultivation level, Guan was more concerned about her achievements in the primordial earth immortal skill and the limitless freedom step. Cultivation level is the main trunk of the tree, but spells and divine skills are the branches and leaves. Both are indispensable. Tian Yaoer was very proud of her cultivation achievements, holding her delicate nose high, looking quite complacent. Guan was worried she might slack off, so he spoke about the cultivation progress of An Hao and Yang Jian, though he didn't mention their names, only referring to them as two disciples. As she listened, Tian Yaoer's head gradually lowered. Tian Qing and Tian Bai, sitting on either side of Guan, listened as if they were hearing a story, occasionally exclaiming, making Tian Yaoer feel even worse. When Guan finished, Tian Yaoer pouted and said, "What's so great about them? Sooner or later, I'll surpass them." Guan laughed and said, "You are also considered my disciple. Why don't you formally acknowledge me as your master?" "No way. Absolutely not." Tian Yaoer stood up immediately, excitedly speaking with her eyes wide open and her teeth gritting, looking somewhat demonic rather than her usual cute self. Guan helplessly said, "Why are you so agitated? If not, then not. I am unwilling to accept anyway." Tian Yaoer sat down and turned her head away. Tian Qing chuckled and said, "The young lady doesn't want to be a disciple. She wants to be the mistress." Hearing this, Tian Yaoer's pretty face turned a bright red. She wasn't angry, and Guan noticed that she stealthily gave a thumbs up to Tian Qing, a very concealed action hiding under her sleeves. Tian Bai joined in the fun, teasing Tian Yaoer. Tian Yaoer tried to clear it up, but the more she explained, the worse it got. Guan watched their staged performance and secretly sighed. Looks like I need to help them improve their acting skills in the future. It's too clumsy. It won't be reliable to let them handle tasks. That night, at their persistent request, Guan chose to stay overnight. Under the tree, Guan leaned against the trunk, holding a book in his hands. Tian Yaoer was reading Journey to the West, but her mind was entirely on him. She looked at the mask on Guan's face, wanting to take it off but afraid Guan would get angry. Though their relationship was already close, she always feared losing everything. Even when acting spoiled, she gauged Guan's tone, afraid of his displeasure. "You want to take off my mask?" Guan suddenly asked. Tian Yaoer instinctively wanted to deny it but couldn't help nodding upon hearing his gentle tone. Upon hearing this, Guan took off his mask and placed it on Tian Yaoer's face. Tian Yaoer hurriedly pulled off the mask, thinking Guan was teasing her, only to realize that Guan hadn't put on another mask. Seeing Guan's handsome face, she was stunned. Because Guan always wore a mask, she always thought the worst, imagining he had an ugly or frightening face. She didn't expect such good looks. The reason Guan was willing to remove his mask was that after so many years of interaction, Tian Yaoer was already completely isolated from external causes and effects. Even if she knew his true face, it wouldn't matter. Of course, the most important reason was that he was strong enough. Though not unmatched in the world, he could at least face all causes and effects on this land. "I know you've always wanted to see my face. Tonight, I'm letting you be happy. From tonight onwards, you must work harder in your cultivation. Stop overthinking. Since I've accepted you, I will not abandon you. You are destined to be the longest companion with me. Look to the long term. One day, I will take you out to travel and see the world. Like the green bull spirit under Lord Lao Zi of the Great Monad in Journey to the West, it could trouble Sun Wukong. I hope you can also stand alone in the future. Your strength is my honor." Guan spoke sincerely. These words were from his heart. Be it in Hao or Yangjian, one day they would eventually leave him. Yilan also had her own cultivation journey. Regardless of how many years she had left, Tianyao, with a maximum lifespan of 18,000 years, was the one who could accompany him the longest. Tianyao was deeply moved after hearing this. She nodded heavily and said, Master, don't worry. I won't let you down. I will also train Tianqing and Tian Bai well. I am your honor. They are my honor. If they can become top experts in the world, it will make you even prouder. Guan laughed and said, just like what's written in the Supreme Immortal Venerable? In the future, if they offend others and need you to step in, which forces me to step in? Tianyao giggled and said, yes, beat the small ones first, then the big ones. You are the older one. Nonsense, your master will always be young. You do look young. They started chatting, envisioning the future. Guan also enjoyed talking. He could only talk about the future with Tianyao. It was impossible with others around him because they didn't know his cultivation level. Even if they knew, how could mortals talk about the future with immortals? It's not that he didn't want to, but it was hard to connect on the same level. The next morning, Guan arrived at the Third Medicine Valley. As soon as he stepped off the transmission array platform, the Nine-Finger Divine Lord greeted him, trying to pull him, but he quickly withdrew and asked in a deep voice, Senior, what do you want to do? The Nine-Finger Divine Lord withdrew his hand, coughed, and said, I want to have another game with you, no, a best of 3. He also realized he was a bit presumptuous but felt Guan's reaction was too excessive. If he intended to harm Guan wouldn't be able to escape. Little did he know, Guan wasn't afraid of being harmed by him but was afraid of accidentally shocking him to death. In the face of Taoist gang primal energy, the Nine-Finger Divine Lord and Guoguhong made no difference. All right, let's play. Guan said with a stern face. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord didn't mind and turned to lead the way. Today, I'll defeat you utterly. Guan thought to himself. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord had almost cost him a wandering immortal's life and must be properly punished. Half an incense stick's time later. Guan stood up and stretched. The disciples around noticed the Nine-Finger Divine Lord's grim face and dispersed, leaving only the two of them under the tree. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord stared at the chessboard, his eyes vacant. He couldn't accept this reality. In the distance, Li Lingtian stood beside Yang Jian, curiously asking, Who is that Taoist? He seems quite extraordinary. Yang Jian replied, He is an elder of the Supreme Sect. Do you think his background is significant or not? After speaking, he turned around and continued sweeping the grounds. Li Lingtian observed the Nine-Finger Divine Lord and thought to himself that the elders of the Supreme Sect should be quite powerful, shouldn't they? Why not find an opportunity to spar with him? Li Lingtian urgently needed a victory to build his confidence. The cultivation of other disciples in the valley was too weak to mention. He couldn't bypass Yang Jian to challenge Guan, so he set his sights on the Nine-Finger Divine Lord. This old man liked playing chess with mortals. Maybe he could also spar with him, a junior. He could ask him to suppress his cultivation realm to the core formation realm. He wanted to see if he could fight across realms. Although losing to Yang Jian deeply frustrated him, he didn't think he lacked talent. He just chose the wrong opponent. He didn't believe he could choose wrong twice. If he couldn't even beat senior brother Gu in chess, then he surely wouldn't be better in combat. Thinking of this, Li Lingtian showed a silly smile on his face. Under the tree, the Nine-Finger Divine Lord lifted his head and looked at Guan, asking in a deep voice, Impossible. I shouldn't have lost to you. Who exactly are you? He was a wandering immortal. Why did he lose? Guan looked up and smiled smugly, saying, I am an immortal. What do you say to that? An immortal? Exactly, you can call me the chess immortal. Get lost. TC. Guan turned and left, his sleeves brushing away. Watching his back, the Nine-Finger Divine Lord revealed a bitter smile. No matter how he looked at it, Guan didn't seem like a disguised great cultivator. Though his cultivation was at the level of a wandering immortal, his vision far surpassed that realm. He couldn't help but shift his gaze back to the chessboard. Could it be that he hadn't truly understood the game of Go? Even after deducing countless possibilities. So what? Go was all about variability. The nine-finger divine lord furrowed his brows, falling into deep thought. Spring passed and summer came, and the temperature of the world continued to rise. On this day, Guan brought Yang Jian and Li Lingtian to Xianxia Valley. He rode on the back of the blood prison great saint's bull, slowly moving forward. Li Lingtian followed behind, dispirited. Obviously they could fly, but instead they had to walk. Was senior brother Gu intentionally tormenting him? But seeing Yang Jian walk calmly, he could only endure. He couldn't lose to Yang Jian in this regard. Rumble, thunder roared in the distance, and Li Lingtian turned back to see storm clouds churning on the horizon. Yang Jian seemed to sense something, stopped, turned back to look, and frowned deeply. Li Lingtian walked over and asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" Yang Jian ignored him, turned, and followed the blood prison great saint. Li Lingtian felt hurt. Yang Jian's indifference always made him frustrated. He understood that in Yang Jian's eyes, he wasn't worth mentioning. Yes, if he were Yang Jian, he wouldn't talk much with someone significantly weaker either. Yang Jian came up to Guan and asked, "Master, I have an uneasy feeling, as if something big is going to happen." Guan replied, "Perhaps indeed a disaster is looming." Yang Jian asked in confusion, "Could it be that the seven-star spirit realm hasn't given up?" Guan didn't answer but instructed, "Carefully sense it. I want to know what you can feel." Chapter 258 Immortal King's True Blood. After hearing the master's instructions, Yang Jian calmed his mind and carefully sensed the surroundings. His steps didn't stop as he followed the blood prison great saint. Li Lingtian followed behind, secretly curious. He frequently looked back at the thunderclouds in the sky, but he couldn't feel anything, which made him very frustrated. Could it be that he didn't even have as much insight as Yang Jian? The speed at which the thunderclouds swept across the sky was fast. Before Guan and the others reached Xianxia Valley, the thunderclouds had already swept over their heads, with torrential rain about to pour down. Yang Jian looked up at Guan and said, "Master, I feel the breath of destruction. Everything in heaven and earth might be annihilated." These words made Li Lingxian's expression strange. Is it really that mystical? He suddenly thought that Guan was not simple, profound and unfathomable. Could Guan be hiding even greater secrets? Was it because the emperor and the crown prince knew something that they favored senior brother Gu? Li Lingtian pondered. Guan didn't continue the conversation but patted the blood prison great saint's ox back, urging him to sprint. "Let's see who gets to Xianxia Valley first." Guan left these words, and the blood prison great saint leapt forward, with the ox hooves creating wind, moving majestically, quickly rushing out of the forest. Yang Jian and Li Lingtian hurried to catch up. At the mention of a competition, Li Lingtian got excited, but to his dismay, he found himself indeed the slowest. Yang Jian was one thing, but what was the background of this uncouth ox head, and why was it so fast? Inside Xianxia Valley, Guan dismounted from the blood prison great saint's back and led Yang Jian towards the cluster of pavilions. Li Lingtian didn't follow. His gaze was fixed on the blood prison great saint, his eyes bloodshot. The blood prison great saint raised his ox head, glanced at him disdainfully, and spat out a word that nearly drove him mad. "Trash!" Li Lingtian was livid, watching the blood prison great saint's back, wanting to curse back, but the words were stuck in his throat and wouldn't come out. He suddenly started doubting his life. Was he really trash? Sure, he was stronger than many, surpassing disciples of Medicine Valley and the Royal Palace, but in the grand scheme of the world, how big were those places? He remembered Guan's words, "There is always someone better out there." The more Li Lingtian thought about it, the more bewildered he became, standing dazedly in place. This time, Guan brought Yang Jian because Li Xiandao wanted to meet him. He wasn't afraid of Li Xiandao's scheming, having gotten to know him over the years. He respected Li Zuando's character, and since they were like-minded individuals, they always believed themselves to be the strongest. When Li Xiandao saw Yang Jian, he was amazed by his talent and growing fond of him. He was very enthusiastic in his questioning, showing extreme concern, which Guan thought surpassed his previous treatment of himself. When Li Lingtian entered the courtyard and saw this scene, he felt even worse. After chatting for over an ancient hour, Li Xiandao decided to give Yang Jian a gift, asking what he wanted. Yang Jian instinctively looked at Guan, which intrigued Li Xiandao. What had Guan done to enamor Yang Jian like this? He had always believed that someone more formidable was behind Guan, and that Guan was just a guise. He had suspected Guan of hiding his strength, but having known him since the age of 15, nothing could have been faked. Knowing Li Zuando's identity, Yang Jian said, "I would like a weapon I can wield comfortably, heavier but not too large." Li Xiandao laughed. "Are you serious, Yang Jian?" Yang Jian, showing an embarrassed look for the first time, nodded in agreement. Li Xiandao immediately agreed, promising to give him a satisfactory weapon within 3 years. In the end, Li Xiandao didn't extend any invitations or try to recruit Yang Jian. Guan, who had earlier considered recruiting Yang Jian for the military, realized he had been overthinking. As Guan prepared to leave, Li Xiandao instructed Li Lingtian to continue following him. Guan didn't refuse, thinking that in the Third Medicine Valley with so many people, one more mouth wouldn't matter. Li Xiandao likely didn't expect him to guide Li Lingtian in anything specific. Cranes flew across the sky in rows, and the sea breeze blew into the immortal-seeking island. Guan walked through the streets with Yang Jian, and Hu Xiaojian led them beside Guan. Today marked Guan's first time bringing Yang Jian to immortal-seeking island, where Yang Jian looked around in amazement, finding everything novel. He was curious about how far this island was from the supreme sect. Guan instructed Hu Xiaojian to introduce immortal-seeking island to Yang Jian. Hu Xiaojian enthusiastically complied, leaving a good impression on Yang Jian. The more Yang Jian learned about immortal-seeking island, the more astonished he became. Compared to the supreme sect, immortal-seeking island seemed like a place of true immortals, with so many immortals coming and going frequently. As Hu Xiaojian introduced the island, he also guided Guan to purchase high-rank medicinal herb seeds. 2 ancient hours later, Guan brought them to Sage Tang Hai's residence. Over the years, Hu Xiaojian had become one of Guan's people. During Guan's absences, Sage Tang Hai had taken good care of him, so he was familiar with the residence. Today, many immortal path cultivators were in the residence, with more than 10 loose immortals and over 40 in the Nirvana realm. These cultivators were Sage Tang Hai's friends, who were all familiar with Guan. Not only was Guan a loose immortal, but his wealth was also astonishing. When discussing medicinal herb transactions on Immortal Seeking Island, Meng Lang's name often came up, making many speculate he had a powerful force behind him. Otherwise, why would he need such a vast amount of medicinal herbs? The great cultivators were very enthusiastic toward Guan's disciple, offering various meeting gifts. Guan had Yang Jian accept them all, as he was equally generous when these cultivators brought their disciples to visit, reciprocating the gesture. Soon, the 3 of them sat down at their own table. Hu Xiaojian whispered, "The sea-breaking rift has brought calamity. It is said that a peerless evil demon is hidden within. Countless cultivators have perished in the seabed, and its true identity remains unknown." Guan asked, "Have the great sects taken any action?" He could see the situation at the sea-breaking rift, where many cultivators and demons were heading right now. The sea-breaking rift, known as the sign of the world-destroying sea tide, is also believed by many to hold opportunities since heaven and earth had been submerged by the ocean numerous times. Each time, an era's immortal cultivation civilization sank to the seabed. Yes, there's action from the Star Sea congregations and other great sects, but there's been no success. Instead, more people are dying, Hu Xiaojian continued. Yang Jian sat on the side, listening attentively. After chatting for a while, Hu Xiaojian began discussing the sea's happenings. To Yang Jian's surprise, he heard a familiar name from his mouth. And how? Having cultivated the flame primordial treasure body, and Hao's reputation soared, with everyone in awe of his incredible talent. Yang Jian had heard that Hao had gone to the Star Sea congregations to cultivate. He didn't expect him to become so renowned at sea. As a servant disciple of the Third Medicine Valley, Yang Jian knew little about Hao, only that he was the strongest talent in the Supreme Sect's history and the sect leader's disciple. To Yang Jian, Hao was always a legendary figure. He wondered what Hao's elegance was like. Yang Jian suddenly felt curious. Could it be that his master knew Hao? Hao was so powerful. It didn't seem like someone the Supreme Sect could cultivate. He had researched the Supreme Sect, and before Sword Venerable Fudeo's rise, there wasn't even one Mystic Heart Realm member. There were rumors about Anhao being Sword Venerable Fudeo's disciple, but they were mostly speculations. Such rumors weren't uncommon. The immortal cultivation world was full of those suspected to be the Sword Venerable's disciples. If Anhao was indeed his unseen senior brother, he would be convinced because Anhao was the most brilliant talent he had heard of. The master must be extremely fond of the senior brother. Yang Jian thought silently as he looked at Guan. Although he had been transformed now, deep down, he still harbored an inferiority complex. He wasn't born a genius. His talent was crafted by his master changing his fate against heaven, so he always feared that everything he had could disappear. His mentality was quite similar to Tian Yaoer. Noticing Yang Jian's gaze, Guan didn't respond. After a while, Sage Tang Hai appeared, greeted everyone, and began explaining the purpose of the gathering. It concerned the sea-breaking rift. Upon hearing these 5 words, the cultivators began discussing fervently. Sage Tang Hai scanned the room and said in a low voice, "I received information that at the bottom of the sea-breaking rift lies a hidden world, dangerous yet containing the cave of an ancient immortal king. In the deep sea spirit palace, someone obtained the immortal king's true blood, transforming their body and comprehending divine skills, and it was by these skills they fought their way out." The cultivators couldn't help but be moved. No one knew the realm of an immortal king, but throughout history, they were always the zenith of the immortal path, with only the greatest of each era qualifying to become immortal kings. Such an opportunity, how could they not be tempted? The higher the cultivation, the more one needed such opportunities. The loose immortals present may be high and mighty on immortal-seeking island, but when it came to higher realms, they had no direction. Not just breaking major realms, even breaking a minor realm depended on fortune and opportunity. I plan to explore it, and those willing to join may sign up. I will share the information when we depart. This is extremely dangerous, and I can't guarantee safety. Think it over carefully. There is no obligation based on our relationships. Sage Tang Hai spoke sincerely. Over the years, besides holding auctions, he had occasionally organized such expeditions. Though not always successful, there were no bad rumors about him, and his character was trustworthy. The cultivators began discussing among themselves. Sage Tang Hai did not specifically invite Guan, as every attendee was personally invited. Once inside, Guan wasn't particularly significant. In fact, everyone was equally important. Ultimately, Guan didn't sign up, while a third of the attendees did, while more chose to avoid the risks due to their long lifespans. After the gathering concluded, Guan led Yang Jian back. Returning to the third medicine valley, Yang Jian still felt like it was a dream. This journey had been too surreal, broadening his horizons. This world was vast, and the supreme sect was just a drop in the ocean. Guan began to patrol the medicine valley, picking the matured herbs. He wondered if he could accumulate 100 million years of lifespan before the calamity struck. From his current perspective, the sea-breaking rift wasn't enough to shake the great heavenly spirit land, which harbored many terrifying forces. Chapter 259 Reincarnation. What Guan saw and heard on Immortal-Seeking Island was just a microcosm of the great forces at sea. Although the sea-breaking rift had the appearance of fierce demons, it also contained opportunities that countless cultivators and demons pursued eagerly. However, as long as this matter didn't affect Guan, he was too lazy to care. Even if people he knew ventured into the sea-breaking rift, he would not stop them. Everyone had their own choices, and during the previous calamities on the continent, many people he knew were also involved. Opportunities were always obtained through struggle and adventure. When the ocean raised storms, the 155-year-old Guan was still living a farming life. Occasionally, he used his divine sense to look at the sea-breaking rift and then at outer heaven. The influence of this sea-breaking rift was great. Guan saw that recently more and more heaven and earth-flying immortals had returned from outer heaven. There were also increasing conflicts on the ocean. When someone brought out treasures from the sea-breaking rift, the bloodshed had already begun. Moreover, Guan noticed a special situation that added more variables to this catastrophe and made him more wary of the sea-breaking rift. The time came to late autumn. Guan was chatting with Yilan. The two of them stood in front of a wooden fence, watching the disciples sweep away the fallen leaves. Unifying the world is a good thing. As for whether to follow the dynasty northward, that's up to you, Guan said. The Taizong dynasty was about to unify the world. Li Xiandao invited the supreme sect to send people north to discuss with the great Jiang dynasty, firstly to show support, and secondly to go north together and establish a base in the former demon lands. Before the Heavenly Ranking Conference, the supreme sect's northern plans were always delayed, with someone secretly sabotaging them. Because of this, the supreme sect had sacrificed some disciples. Now no force dared to oppose the supreme sect, and the supreme sect was also preparing to establish a subsect in the north. Yilan was talking about going to the subsect. If she went to the subsect, her status and position would be promoted, and she was very tempted. If she didn't go, with her current cultivation level, she could only be an elder in the inner sect, but the power she would obtain would be small. Yilan hesitated. I really want to go, but I'm afraid I won't see you as often in the future. Guan laughed and said, that's just the early stage. Once the teleportation array is built, you'll be able to see me whenever you want. Although Yilan liked him, her life was not only about Guan. She couldn't revolve around him, and he also hoped that Yilan could live more wonderfully. The splendor of life, romantic love was just a part of it. Especially after cultivating immortality, the weight of love was even smaller. So-called love itself began with desire. Cultivating immortality and cultivating the mind naturally could control physical desires, but spiritual desires would become greater. In the early years, Yilan had thrived in the outer disciple deacon hall, and she still had a desire for power in her heart. However, this desire was less important compared to her regard for Guan, which made her very hesitant. Hearing Guan's words, Yilan felt reasonable, nodded and said teasingly, if I leave, won't you, senior brother, feel more at ease? Guan said indignantly, what are you talking about? I feel at ease whether you are here or not. Yilan couldn't help but lightly hit him. Guan reminded her not to slack off in her practice after going to the subsect. The senior brother and sister chatted and began to reminisce about the past. As dusk approached, Yilan left. Guan had just sat down at his desk and was about to flip through a book when he suddenly sensed something. He directed his divine sense towards the great Jiang dynasty. The long-hidden primordial Taoist talisman had finally made a move. It merged into the abdomen of a woman from a Ji family branch, which surprised Guan. Was this considered reincarnation? After reaching the carefree primordial immortal realm, Guan could already spy on the yin-yang rules of the world, but he still couldn't see where reincarnation was. Those souls would rise into the sky within 7 days after death, disappear after reaching a certain height, and those that did not rise within 7 days would turn into vengeful spirits, repelled by the heaven and earth rules. To survive, they had to harm living spirits and absorb their essence energy to enhance their ghostly energy, growing stronger step by step. After Ji Xiaoyu's death, her soul had been hiding in the primordial Taoist talisman, unlike other ghosts who persecuted living beings. Under Guan's watch, the primordial Taoist talisman completely merged with the woman's aura, as if it had disappeared out of thin air. Who knew if this Ji Xiaoyu would have the memories of her past life? Guan remembered that Ji Xiaoyu had seemed mature beyond her years as a child, unlike normal children. Perhaps she had always retained her past life memories but had hidden them well. After watching for a while, Guan withdrew his gaze. The moonlight was slightly cool, and the evening breeze blew in through the window, moving Guan's sideburns. This breeze lasted another 10 years. 10 years passed, the world changed greatly, and the territories of the 3 dynasties were unified. Only the Taizong dynasty remained, and for the people, it was truly peace under heaven. Taizong focused on development, exploring the world by sea and mining resources in the north. With the increase in resources, all industries within the dynasty flourished. The same was true for the immortal cultivation world, with new sects constantly emerging. For example, the Zhuhua sect was the most rapidly developing sect in these 10 years and was already one of the top 9 sects in Taizong, with the Supreme Sect ranked first and the Zongtian sect second. The sub-sect of the Supreme Sect had already been established, and various news kept flowing into the Supreme Sect, making all disciples feel the sect's rise. The treatment of disciples from the Medicine Valley also improved, and the time disciples stayed in the Medicine Valley began to shorten, proving that the Supreme Sect was investing more resources into their cultivation, reducing the time for servant disciples to reach foundation establishment. One day, Guan had just arrived at the 3rd Medicine Valley from Mystic Valley. He turned his head and saw a crowd in front of the nearby pavilions, all gathered to watch a Go game. He didn't know when it started, but Go had begun to be popular in the Supreme Sect, and Go masters always came to the Third Medicine Valley. Guan knew it was because the Nine-Finger Divine Lord liked to play Go here. He had become the biggest promoter of Go. Moreover, with his current cultivation level at the Mahayana realm, the Hall of Elders couldn't help but flatter him. Last month, LV Batian had even asked him if he wanted to organize a Go tournament, but he refused. Currently, Go was only popular within the Supreme Sect, and it was too early to hold a tournament. The most important reason was that the Nine-Finger Divine Lord wanted to hold the tournament in the Third Medicine Valley. How could he agree to that? Wouldn't that affect him planting medicinal herbs? Guan only watched for a while before heading towards his pavilion. Now the Nine-Finger Divine Lord seldom asked Guan to play Go, probably focusing on improving his Go skills. The person playing Go with the Nine-Finger Divine Lord was a cultivator at the Unification Realm and also an elder of the sect. Those old cultivators whose cultivation levels had stagnated easily became addicted to Go. Guan suddenly sensed something, piquing his interest. He immediately called for the Blood Prison Great Saint and rode him towards the Outer Gate City. Foundation establishment realm mounts were not uncommon in the current Supreme Sect. If one stayed at the Third Medicine Valley for half a day, one would surely see disciples riding mounts flying over the Medicine Valley. Master, why did you suddenly want to go to the Outer Gate City? The Blood Prison Great Saint asked curiously. Lu Lingjun has returned and is taking people to the Heavenly Repair platform. She probably wants to try the heaven-cutting axe, Guan replied casually. The Blood Prison Great Saint was immediately interested. He knew Lu Lingjun had founded the Ascension sect, and those she brought might be ascenders. As ascenders, they would naturally want to learn more about each other. The Blood Prison Great Saint's speed was very fast, and they soon arrived in front of the Heavenly Repair platform. Compared to 10 years ago, the Heavenly Repair platform was even more bustling, with cultivators of varying cultivation levels, from the Qi cultivation realm to loose immortal realm, on the platform. Yes, there were loose immortals, and not just one. They all came from overseas. They first expressed their respect to the Sword Venerable Fudao and then openly ascended to the Heavenly Repair platform to comprehend the sword intent of the Sword Venerable Fudao. Years ago, Guan had secretly enhanced the sword intent contained within the words, Righteous Path. Guan dismounted and walked up to the Heavenly Repair platform. The Bull Demon King did not ascend the platform, as mounts and demon pets were not permitted to ascend, for fear of offending the Sword Venerable Fudao. At this moment, more and more people were gathering around the heaven-cutting axe. The news had spread that an overseas loose immortal had come to challenge the heaven-cutting axe. Over the years, loose immortals were no longer a mysterious term within the Supreme Sect. Many people knew that loose immortals represented a realm, signifying immortals and the highest realm they currently recognized. Why currently? Because the immortal cultivation world's development speed was too fast. Who knew if a higher realm name might emerge in 10 years? Of course, the Mahayana realm was still a revered existence. Zhuaijian stood beside the heaven-cutting axe, holding the investiture of the gods. Although his eyes were on the book, he was clearly distracted. This overseas loose immortal was the person Lu Lingjun had brought, her master whom she had worshipped at sea. Guan joined the crowd and used lifespan detection on that person. Holy Mother of Western Spirit, Loose Immortal Realm 8th Floor 18907/24000/150000. A maximum lifespan of 150,000 years meant that the Holy Mother of Western Spirit could reach the wandering immortal realm. Even in the sea area where Immortal Seeking Island was located, wandering immortals were exalted beings, rarely seen. The Holy Mother of Western Spirit wore a purple robe, with long white hair tied up under a bejeweled golden crown. A green scarf coiled around her elbow. Standing there, she exuded a vast pressure, inspiring awe. Although she had white hair, her appearance was youthful and beautiful, though her imposing presence made it easy to overlook this. The Holy Mother of Western Spirit approached the heaven-cutting axe and examined it closely. She came to this continent specifically for Sword Venerable Fudao. This was one of the reasons she took Lu Lingjun as her disciple. Overseas great cultivators had a deeper understanding of the destruction of the Seven Stars Spirit Realm. Sword Venerable Fudao was undoubtedly the most powerful cultivator she had heard of so far. How could she not be interested? Zhuaijian, seeing her hesitation, said impatiently, "Hurry up. There are people waiting. When the ancient hour arrives, Not even the lord of a holy land can make an exception. Loose immortal or whatever immortal, in the supreme sect, everyone had to follow the rules. The Holy Mother of Western Spirit was not angered. She raised her right hand, her snow-white palm reaching out to grasp the heaven-cutting axe. She could feel that the weight was not from the heaven-cutting axe itself, but from the vast mana within it. After 2 attempts, she gave up and turned to leave. This disappointed the spectators. There was little commotion. They didn't expect the Holy Mother of Western Spirit to succeed, just wanted to see the lofty immortal in a moment of embarrassment. Lu Lingjun exchanged a few words with the Holy Mother of Western Spirit and then was about to leave when her eyes suddenly caught Guan. Guan, why are you here? Lu Lingjun transmitted her voice to Guan while waving to him. Chapter 260. Astonishing Heaven and Sea Waves, Terrifying Treasure Body. Seeing Lu Lingjun wave her hand, Guan could only walk up to her. He cupped his fists and saluted the Holy Mother of Western Spirit, as basic courtesy should at least be observed with a loose immortal. The Holy Mother of Western Spirit slightly nodded, without saying anything. Lu Lingjun then pulled Guan along, and after descending from the heavenly repair platform, she took a storage bag from her waist belt and handed it to him. I won't be returning to Medicine Valley. This is something I brought for you from overseas, Lu Lingjun said softly. Guan nodded and did not question what she planned to do next. He simply told her if she ever needed his help, she could always find him in the 3rd Medicine Valley. Lu Lingjun smiled, then left with the Holy Mother of Western Spirit. Watching Lu Lingjun's departing figure, Guan thought that it seemed she was gradually distancing herself from the 3rd Medicine Valley. After all, she was now the sect leader, and how could she possibly reside long-term in Medicine Valley, let alone have her loose immortal master live with servant disciples? The Blood Prison Great Saint walked over, secretly surprised. His master claimed to be a loose immortal, but a loose immortal could not possibly lift the heaven-cutting axe. He asked no more questions, thinking it was better for Guan to be stronger, as it meant his current situation was a blessing rather than a curse. Guan turned and left, planning to wander around the outer gate city. He could feel that the Holy Mother of Western Spirit's arrival was aimed at Sword Venerable Fudao, and earlier she had tried to lift the heaven-cutting axe, intending to connect with Sword Venerable Fudao. But he had no desire to meet the Holy Mother of Western Spirit. It was easy to guess that it probably had to do with the sea-breaking rift. 10 years had passed, and the disaster caused by the sea-breaking rift had only grown worse. Besides mysterious fierce demons, these years had also seen the appearance of beings called divine exotic resentful ghosts from the sea-breaking rift. Divine exotic resentful ghosts were immortal and could only be sealed. There were sects that had been massacred by these beings. The most fearsome thing was that a wandering immortal great cultivator from the Star Sea congregations had ventured into the sea-breaking rift, turned into a divine exotic resentful ghost, returned to the sea, acted recklessly, and slaughtered countless souls, forcing the Star Sea congregations to use immortal path supreme treasures to suppress him. Various rumors about the sea-breaking rift began to spread. Li Ya, who owned Divine Exotic City, was also being pressured, with many wanting to take his Divine Exotic City. But fortunately, the Star Sea congregations were strong enough to protect him. However, he had lost his freedom and was unable to leave the Star Sea congregations without permission. While the sea was a scene of bloody turmoil, the mainland remained tranquil, with everything harmonious, at least within the Supreme Sect. Guan sought out his friends in the outer sect for a drink, discussing upcoming interesting events or the romantic tales of the sect's aristocracy. The Supreme Sect was now very open, unlike the tense atmosphere of the past, and lower-level disciples discussing the great cultivators would not face retribution as a result. The noble families now cherished their reputations, fearing any scandal that would get them expelled from the Supreme Sect. With Sword Venerable Fudao present, the Supreme Sect had to abide by the rules of the righteous path. Of course, this was only within the Supreme Sect. If one offended a sect aristocrat, they might not act within the sect, but outside it, anything could happen. Until the night, Guan finally rode back to the valley on the Blood Prison Great Saint. He held a wine gourd, reciting poetry, which the Blood Prison Great Saint praised as fine verse. Guan thought he had good judgment, daring to praise any lousy poem, which was its own kind of realm. The arrival of the Holy Mother of Western Spirit did not shock the Supreme Sect, whose foundations were also quickly growing. Unless the Holy Mother of Western Spirit was coming to join the Supreme Sect, they would not mobilize for her. Another summer arrived. Guan lay under the mystic pure tree, staring at his attribute panel. His lifespan had reached 25 million years. Although it was still far from 100 million years, the number already gave him a sense of security. Nearby, the white spirit rat and the blood prison great saint were playing. Although the white spirit rat could not yet speak, its maximum lifespan was continually increasing, and its reflex speed was beyond what the blood prison great saint of the Foundation establishment realm could match. Boom! A thunderous sound came from afar, alarming everyone in Medicine Valley. The blood prison great saint and the white spirit rat stopped and looked toward the horizon, their expressions tense. The nine-finger divine lord, who had been playing chess, frowned and turned to look, extending his divine sense. His face quickly grew grim. Guan was rather calm. The reason he was checking his attribute panel was that he sensed something significant was happening. Before the loud noise, a powerful force had erupted from the bottom of the sea-breaking rift, causing immense waves on either side. The waves continued to escalate and were now reaching a height of 300 zhang as they surged toward the mainland, growing larger all the time. A large number of cultivators were rushing to the scene, trying to prevent the catastrophe. Guan sensed a massive amount of eerie energy rising from the depths of the sea-breaking rift, predicting the emergence of divine exotic resentful ghosts. Divine exotic resentful ghosts were different from the divine soul demons of divine exotic city. They had their own spiritual wisdom and even retained memories of their former selves, but their personalities had drastically changed. They killed any living spirits they encountered, which caused the turmoil in the sea-based immortal cultivation world. The strength of divine exotic resentful ghosts was not the frightening part. The terror lay in their retained spiritual wisdom and memories, all of which had now turned against living spirits, hence the widespread fear. Having spiritual wisdom meant they could establish rules and even pose the possibility of overturning the mortal world. Guan rose, realizing he could not appear too indifferent, as the entire valley was in shock and he had to cooperate with the rest. He wondered whether slaying the divine exotic resentful ghosts could extend his lifespan. If so, it might be worth intervening early. Xianxia ran over, standing next to him, and whispered, "Master, I just had an illusion of being attacked by many demons and ghosts." Fear flashed in his eyes. It was not simply an illusion. He had felt as though he had experienced a near-death event. Somewhere in the unseen, it seemed as if something terrifying was approaching him. Guan looked at Xianxia and suddenly noticed that his karma had become blurred. He could no longer glimpse Xianxia's past through their karmic connection. "Don't worry. Just stay by my side. What could happen? Focus on your cultivation," Guan reassured him. Actually, he himself was unsure of the reason behind it. Although he was a carefree primordial immortal, he had only lived for 166 years and did not know much about the world. He could see through the heaven and earth rules, but he had not yet reached the point of omniscience. He guessed that the visions Xianxia saw might be related to his physique. After all, the immortal-seeking Taoist had said Xianxia had some kind of ancient treasure body. Hearing Guan's reassurance, Xianxia immediately felt at ease. Right, with Master around, nothing could happen to him. Guan then walked toward where his disciples were gathered, intending to discuss the matter with everyone and maintain his image as a core formation realm cultivator. At noon, Immortal-Seeking Island. In a courtyard, the immortal-seeking Taoist looked at Guan with a peculiar expression. He poured a cup of wine for Guan and asked, "How did Taoist friend Meng know I was here?" He had been back at Immortal-Seeking Island for many years but had stayed in his residence without going out. Guan replied, "I knew when you first returned. Back then, a lot of people were aware. I came to see you today because my disciple encountered a problem." Upon hearing it concerned Xianxia, the immortal-seeking Taoist lost interest in questioning how Guan knew he was on the island and asked about the issue instead. Guan did not hold anything back. After listening, the immortal-seeking Taoist's expression became complicated. He sighed and said, "Ancient treasure bodies have a self-protection instinct. His treasure body must have sensed danger, likely related to the sea-breaking rift. There may be another treasure body hidden there. I have heard that ancient treasure bodies have a competitive and perceptive nature among themselves, especially innate ancient treasure bodies which can sense each other's existence and will attempt to devour one another. If that treasure body does come from the sea-breaking rift, it might be a deceased ancient strongman who has turned into a divine exotic resentful ghost. In that case, it will be a big problem. He had returned to Immortal Seeking Island to avoid catastrophe. At this moment, he even considered fleeing Immortal Seeking Island because he feared Guan might bring Yang Jian along. Admiration aside, the Immortal Seeking Taoist would not die for Yang Jian. Not his disciple. Even if it were his disciple, he would abandon them. The Immortal Seeking Taoist looked at Guan, hesitating to speak, wanting to persuade Guan to give up on Yang Jian, but he felt that saying so would be pointless. Guan would weigh the situation himself, and saying more would only make him unhappy. Guan became thoughtful. The tsunami that had erupted yesterday continued to rise. Cultivators tried to stop it but had no success. The waves contained some powerful force that neutralized all spiritual power and mana along the way. One day passed, and the wave's crest had already surpassed 1,000 zhang. 1,000 zhang high wave was incredibly imposing, swallowing countless sea islands along its path. Currently, wandering immortals of the Star Sea congregations were still attempting to hold back the waves but without success. The immortal-seeking Taoist saw Guan was deep in thought and did not disturb him, leisurely playing with his wine cup. After a while, Guan thanked the immortal-seeking Taoist and then stood up to leave. The immortal-seeking Taoist did not try to keep him, realizing that Guan's visit had provided more information. The thought of an ancient treasure body reaching completion and emerging filled him with dread. No, he had to escape. Chapter 261, The Unstoppable Catastrophe. After returning from Immortal Seeking Island, Guan did not tell Yang Jian about the mutual devouring of the ancient treasure bodies to avoid worrying him. If an ancient treasure body had truly transformed into a divine exotic resentful ghost, it would not be something Yang Jian could handle. As his master, Guan naturally had to step in. Since he had to take action, he saw no need to make his disciple worry. The Supreme Sect dispatched a great cultivator to fly towards the direction of the sea-breaking rift, and news of the terrifying sea tide quickly spread. Guan continued his regular routine, pretending to be unaware of this matter. While the disciples of the Medicine Valley were busy working and cultivating, the ocean had already entered a cataclysm. If viewed from above, one could see that with the sea tide at the center, cultivators were continuously flocking from all directions, creating a spectacular scene. While inspecting the medicine garden, Guan saw several heaven and earth flying immortals flying by, not just one. The sea waves continued to surge. On the boundless ocean, the waves swept across like a mountain range. In front of this mountain range, countless cultivators formed a line, continuously casting spells to block the waves. Unfortunately, their spell and divine skills only caused splashes and could not disperse the waves. The number of cultivators continued to increase, but no matter how many there were, they could not shake the momentum of the waves. Qi Jiuxiao of the Star Sea congregations also came with his master Qi Bei to assist. Despite giving his all, he couldn't resist the waves' power. Damn it! Who on earth is stirring up trouble within these waves? Qi Jiuxiao cursed angrily, but none of the Star Sea congregation's cultivators nearby answered him. They were all very nervous. Only those who truly cast spells to block the waves could feel the terrifying power contained within. Qi Bai's voice came from a distance. It doesn't matter who is causing trouble. We must stop this. Countless beings with low cultivation levels are on the continent behind us. The Star Sea congregations must protect them. Qi Jiuxiao understood this principle. He was merely complaining, but his hands did not stop moving. Suddenly, Qi Jiuxiao felt a vast aura coming from behind, causing his mana to pause for a moment. Whoosh! A gust of fierce wind howled, startling the cultivators to instinctively turn their heads to look. Qi Jiuxiao did the same, widening his eyes. He saw thunderclouds unfold in the sky, and at the end of the cloud stood a massive flag, 10,000 feet high, as if its top had touched the sky. Any living being appeared insignificant before this flag. Qi Jiuxiao recognized the origin of this flag with just one glance. When he returned to the pavilion, he saw Nine-Finger Divine Lord standing by the wooden railing, staring north in silence. Guan approached and asked what he was thinking about. Nothing much. Nine-Finger Divine Lord shook his head. He was naturally focused on the ocean's calamity. Seeing that Nine-Finger Divine Lord did not wish to elaborate, Guan did not press further. He simply nodded and walked away. Nine-Finger Divine Lord suddenly turned to him and asked, Valley Master, if your loved ones turned into monsters that harm all beings, what would you choose to do? Guan halted, turned to look at him, and thought for a moment. If they were truly my loved ones, I wouldn't shield them, but neither would I become their enemy. If they insist on killing me, I would fight to the death. Nine-Finger Divine Lord chuckled after hearing this and said, "It's not that simple. Your answer lacks struggle." Indeed, it's not that simple, but why ponder over it? The only thing one can truly control is oneself, right? Guan retorted. Did Nine-Finger Divine Lord have loved ones that had turned into divine exotic resentful ghosts? Judging by Nine-Finger Divine Lord's lifespan, he certainly had a story. Nine-Finger Divine Lord sighed. Yes, one can only control oneself. Even cultivators are the same. The more one tries to control, the more one deviates from the path of immortal cultivation. The two chatted casually, with Nine-Finger Divine Lord's words filled with sorrow yet lacking specifics. Soon, they turned their conversation to the game of Go. Meanwhile, in a residence in the main city of the sect, Lu Lingjun and the Holy Mother of Western Spirit sat across from each other in the courtyard. At this moment, the Holy Mother of Western Spirit looked at a copper mirror on the table, frowning deeply. In the mirror was a blurry figure, seemingly saying something. After the figure in the mirror disappeared, the Holy Mother of Western Spirit put the copper mirror into her sleeve. Although Lu Lingjun sat next to her, she did not hear the figure's words. She couldn't help asking, "Master, who were you speaking to just now?" The Holy Mother of Western Spirit took a deep breath and said, "An elder of mine. I asked him about the path of this catastrophe. He advised me to leave early to avoid it." Upon hearing this, Lu Lingjun's brows furrowed. In her heart, the Holy Mother of Western Spirit held an exceptional position and cultivation level. Even if she was not as powerful as Sword Venerable Fudao, she was still one of the top great cultivators she had ever seen. For even the being behind the Holy Mother of Western Spirit to advise them to avoid this calamity, it must be extraordinary. The cause and effect hidden within the sea-breaking rift are such that even my elders dare not involve themselves. Perhaps we truly should leave. The world is vast, there will be somewhere to escape the disaster, the Holy Mother of Western Spirit said with a sigh. Lu Lingjun replied, "The Supreme Sect has Sword Venerable Fudao. He may be able to overcome this crisis." Ever since she joined the Supreme Sect, she had experienced the demon calamity and heard of Sword Venerable Fudao sweeping through the seven-star spirit realm single-handedly. She had great confidence in Sword Venerable Fudao. The Holy Mother of Western Spirit, however, was still worried. It's hard to say. She came to the Supreme Sect intending to rely on the power of Sword Venerable Fudao to avoid the calamity. But she had just learned that the scope of the disaster had changed, with even more powerful variables appearing. Even her sect dared not involve itself rashly. Not all sects in this world followed the righteous path. More sects aimed only to preserve their own Taoist traditions. Not just them, at this moment within the Supreme Sect, those great cultivators from the ocean were also discussing this matter. With their cultivation levels surpassing the native disciples of the Supreme Sect, they also had superior intelligence capabilities, understanding more about the approaching threat of the waves directed at their continent. Naturally, they were anxious. Their first thought was Sword Venerable Fudao. If the ocean cultivators could not block the waves, could Sword Venerable Fudao withstand them when they reached the continent's edge? Some had already chosen to flee the continent, unwilling to gamble on Sword Venerable Fudao's strength. Rumble, the sky thunder cracked, thunderclouds tumbling, interwoven with boundless lightning. A sea wave over 1,500 feet high advanced with the momentum to engulf everything under heaven. It seemed as if the entire sea had risen, unstoppable and imposing. Under this wave, all cultivators and demons appeared small. Qi Jiuxiao endured the storm with his armor drenched. He continually retreated, his face full of anxiety. Subconsciously, he looked back and could see the outline of the continent. At this rate, countless lives would be buried in the sea tides. This water was not ordinary seawater. It contained some strange and powerful force. Some cultivators who had been swept into it had already transformed into divine exotic resentful ghosts. Thinking that the entire continent's beings might turn into divine exotic resentful ghosts made Xianxia's scalp tingle. He looked ahead, seeing 12 figures in front of the wave. They emitted an aura far surpassing all cultivators behind them. Yet, despite their vast mana, they were being pushed back by the wave. All 12 were heaven and earth flying immortals, either the founders of sects or elders of the Star Sea congregations. Facing the wave, they were all powerless. They could only slow the wave's advance but could not suppress it. The previous dispersal of the wave by the Star Sea primordial unity banner had only been temporary. Chapter 262. It is Sword Venerable Fudao. As noon approached, Guan arrived at Mystic Valley. It had been 2 days since the sea-breaking rift had erupted with waves, and now it was the 3rd day. Guan was about to gather medicinal herbs when he suddenly sensed something. He sighed softly, then continued harvesting. He had already felt a powerful force approaching from afar. Originally, Guan didn't want to concern himself with the survival of the 2 distant continents. The waves would have to pass through these 2 continents before reaching his own, and they were still very far away. But now, a dangerous aura had emerged from within the waves, forcing him to change his strategy. He couldn't wait until the force behind the catastrophe neared his continent before acting. If that happened, it would easily lead to unexpected changes. The farther the catastrophe remained from the supreme sect, the more room he would have to operate. He couldn't fight on the continent itself, where he would have to consider the well-being of all living things. As the catastrophe progressed, the entire ocean had become aware of the existence of the divine exotic resentful ghost. The sea-breaking rift was definitely not a natural calamity. Deep within it lay a force poised to overturn the mortal world. Whether Guan intervened or not, this would be a disaster the entire ocean needed to face together. Guan continued gathering medicinal herbs while pondering how to act. Lu Jiujia, the chief disciple of Mystic Valley, approached and softly asked, "Senior brother, I've heard there is a disaster at sea that could potentially affect our continent. What should Mystic Valley do?" From his words, it was clear how much the supreme sect had progressed over the years. The disaster at sea had only been ongoing for 3 days, yet word of it had already spread within the sect. In the past, let alone 3 days, as long as the disaster didn't make landfall, inner sect disciples could go their entire lives without knowing. Naturally, we should adhere to our duties, cultivate diligently, and provide the best medicinal herbs. That is the greatest responsibility we can bear, Guan replied nonchalantly. Lu Jiujia nodded. In truth, he just wanted to gauge his senior brother's attitude. After all, his senior brother had connections within the inner sect and would certainly know more than they did. Since his senior brother was unperturbed, he saw no reason to worry and could reassure the valley's disciples. After Lu Jiujia left, Guan continued picking herbs. 30 minutes later, Guan arrived at the eastern cliff of Mystic Valley, with the Blood Prison Great Saint following behind. "Master, what brings us here?" the Blood Prison Great Saint asked curiously, noticing Guan playing with a leaf. Guan stood at the edge of the cliff, looking toward the horizon. "To stop the disaster at sea," he replied. Upon hearing this, the Blood Prison Great Saint's eyes widened. He took a step forward and asked, "How will you stop it? Didn't you say the catastrophe was far from us?" Guan grasped the leaf with his left hand and pressed his right hand against the Blood Prison Great Saint's ox head. In an instant, the Great Saint's expression changed drastically, his eyes widening in shock as the image of a terrifying wave appeared in his pupil reflection. He saw the scene that Guan's divine sense had captured. At that moment, in front of the massive waves, countless great cultivators were besieging a terrifying figure 1,000 feet tall. It was a humanoid monster, wearing only pants and bare-chested. Its entire body was dark, covered with blood-red scars, as if it might split apart at any moment. Its hair was wild, with a fierce and ghostly face full of fangs, holding a bone knife, exuding dominance and arrogance. The myriad spells and divine skills cast upon it failed to shake its massive form. Its roar drowned out the thunder, turning the sea and sky into a hellish landscape. The Blood Prison Great Saint trembled at the sight of the 1,000-foot figure. The aura alone was terrifying to behold. The spells and divine skills of the cultivators were immense, resembling the power of immortals, creating a spectacle rivaling the sun and moon. The more powerful the cultivators, the more terrifying the 1,000-foot figure seemed. Guan raised his right hand, breaking the Great Saint's vision, who instinctively looked at Guan, wanting to see more. However, he saw Guan lift his left hand and wave it toward the horizon. With a casual wave, the leaf in his hand shot out like a flying sword, emitting a cold light before disappearing into the horizon. Guan then turned to leave. The Blood Prison Great Saint stood stunned for a moment before hurriedly following him. Master, is that all? What else? You just threw a leaf? Stop fussing. But, what realm have you reached? The Blood Prison Great Saint wasn't doubting Guan's success. He was just in shock. To slay such a terrifying being that many cultivators couldn't handle, with just a leaf from such a distance? What level of cultivation would one have to reach to achieve such a feat? Guan didn't answer the Great Saint's question, leaving him to ponder endlessly. Meanwhile, far over the ocean, the sky was dark, thunder roared, rain poured, and winds howled in all directions. Qi Jiuxiao held the dragon-slaying spear, flames burning around him. The rain evaporated into steam as it approached him. He bit his lip, glaring at the terrifying figure in the distance, his eyes full of struggle. Where did that thing come from? Qi Jiuxiao thought angrily. The great cultivators ahead displayed energies far beyond his reach, 12 of whom reminded him of Sword Venerable Fudao. So many great cultivators gathered, yet they couldn't harm the 1,000-foot figure one bit. How could he not be afraid? Some cultivators had already fled in terror, and he too hesitated whether to retreat. If the great cultivators ahead retreated, their speed would surely outpace his. Whoever was the slowest would die. But he also feared others might choose to fight to the end. If he fled, how could he maintain his standing in the immortal cultivation world later? At that moment, Qi Jiuxiao vaguely heard a whistling sound. He barely had time to react before his vision suddenly brightened, his pupils moving instinctively. Time seemed to stand still, everything in the world frozen, the casting cultivators still, the roaring 1,000-foot figure halted, its terrifying stance fixed. The rain hung suspended in the air, each droplet reflecting a gleam of sword light. The churning waves presented the image of countless white flowers, strangely beautiful. A streak of sword light swiftly traversed this nearly frozen world, passing by the cultivators, dashing toward the 1,000-foot figure. The crimson eyes of the figure reflected the sword light. Boom! The head of the 1,000-foot figure was instantly blasted apart by the sword light, and the rolling giant wave behind it was dispersed, creating a huge gap, leaving all the cultivators in awe. Sunlight streamed down, revealing that the storm clouds had also been torn apart. Upon closer inspection, the sea of thunderclouds before them had been split in two, extending to the horizon where the sea met the sky. Everything happened so quickly. Not only did Qi Jiuxiao have no time to react, but even the heaven and earth flying immortals were stunned in midair, maintaining their casting poses. Under their gaze, the headless 1,000-foot figure turned to ashes, scattering with the wind. The heaven and earth flying immortals immediately turned to look in the direction from which the sword light had come, their expressions astounded but not panicked. Given the speed of that sword light, even if they had tried to defend, it would have been useless if the attacker had wanted to kill them. Who made that move? Such speed, such domineering sword intent. Could it be someone at the 9th level of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm? Even a 9th-level cultivator would find it hard to be so overpowering. Which major force's domain is in that direction? The heaven and earth flying immortals communicated through divine sense, while other cultivators, after a brief silence, erupted in thunderous cheers. Qi Jiuxiao saw the unstoppable giant wave now reduced to a broken bridge, crumbling at both ends, and his expression was exceedingly complex. It was Sword Venerable Fudao. No mistake about it. Not only had he felt the sword intent from the heavenly repair platform, but Sword Venerable Fudao had also saved him. And the direction behind him was exactly that of the Supreme Sect. But how far was this place from the Supreme Sect? Could it be that Sword Venerable Fudao had already arrived nearby? For some reason, an absurd idea suddenly formed in Qi Jiuxiao's mind. Maybe Sword Venerable Fudao never left the Supreme Sect, otherwise, why use a long-distance means to kill the enemy? At this moment, someone shouted, "It's Sword Venerable Fudao. That direction is toward the Supreme Sect. I visited the Supreme Sect a few years ago and felt Sword Venerable Fudao's sword intent." The mention of Sword Venerable Fudao startled all the cultivators. After the 7-star spirit realm broke apart, Sword Venerable Fudao's name shook the ocean. Though not universally known, most cultivators who came to aid had high-level cultivation and somewhat knew the truth behind the disbanding of the 7-star spirit realm. If it was Sword Venerable Fudao, they could understand. With understanding came shock and excitement. Was Sword Venerable Fudao truly this powerful? A heaven and earth flying immortal raised a hand, catching a leaf. He looked at the leaf, his expression complicated. The other flying immortals also turned their gaze toward the leaf, feeling the residual sword intent from it. Before they could speak, the leaf suddenly turned to ashes, as if it had never existed. Guan returned to the third medicine valley with the blood prison great saint, wandering around as the great saint's gaze followed him, eyes full of complex emotions. The waves within his heart were difficult to calm. As Guan walked, he was puzzled. It didn't yield any lifespan. Could it be that slaying the divine exotic resentful ghosts provided no lifespan? Did immortality mean having no lifespan in the first place? Though Guan felt regret, at least he had stopped a catastrophe. However, he had a feeling this was only the beginning. Stronger calamities were likely to emerge from the sea-breaking rift. What kind of being would come next? At this moment, Yu Yingying suddenly approached him and said, "Guan, in preparing to return to the Star Sea congregations." Guan asked, "Why?" "With the great catastrophe approaching, it's definitely safer back with the Star Sea congregations. I find you pretty agreeable, so are you coming with me?" "No one else can come," Yu Yingying said, glaring at him. Guan shook his head. "I won't go. My cultivation level is too low to survive in the Star Sea congregations. If the Supreme Sect were to fall tomorrow, I would rather disappear with it." In the distance, the blood prison great saint couldn't help but roll his eyes. The master fooling a simpleton again. Yu Yingying opened her mouth, but in the end, said nothing. She patted Guan's shoulder and turned to pack her things. Guan had no intention of stopping her. It was a good thing for Yu Yingying to return to the Star Sea congregations early, as it prevented her from causing him trouble. Yu Yingying had a strange cause and effect within her, suppressing her talent and lifespan. Guan couldn't see through this cause and effect for the time being, so he didn't want to get too involved with her. If he got too emotionally attached, he would have to help her eventually, which would be too troublesome. Receiving Sword Venerable Fudao's favor, it seemed that heaven favored the Supreme Sect. If such a strong person lived in the Star Sea congregations, how great would that be? As Guan listened, he felt something was amiss. Why was she telling him this? Could she have guessed that he was Sword Venerable Fudao? For a moment, Guan felt apprehensive towards Yu Yingying. Yu Yingying had no idea of Guan's thoughts. She just said whatever came to mind and never considered whether Guan might be Sword Venerable Fudao. After a long while, Yu Yingying, having fully vented her desire to share, left with a pleased heart. Guan watched her back, thinking it a pity he could not use this opportunity to shake her off. Considering her great admiration for Sword Venerable Fudao, he decided to let her stay a bit longer. In the following days, the entire Supreme Sect revolved around discussions of Sword Venerable Fudao, and with many ocean cultivators in the sect, news of the divine exotic resentful ghost also spread. Indestructible and immortal, devouring living spirits. Divine exotic resentful ghosts were transformed from living spirits. Just hearing this was terrifying. It is worth mentioning that Yu Yingying went to the Outer Gate City every day to preach the might of Sword Venerable Fudao. She felt that some things needed to be clearly stated so that the Supreme Sect could more greatly revere Sword Venerable Fudao. Every time Sword Venerable Fudao acted, the number of cultivators on the heavenly repair platform increased dramatically. This made Zhua Yijian, who guarded the heaven-cutting axe, even busier, but he was not tired, rather he became more energetic and proud. He now considered himself one of Sword Venerable Fudao's people. After all, Sword Venerable Fudao had patted him on the shoulder. Who could have such an honor? Guan observed numerous sects gathering above the sea-breaking rift, and from a glance, the number of cultivators already exceeded 5 million and was still growing. It seemed the sea-breaking rift had caused widespread panic in the ocean. His gaze shifted upward, noticing more and more heaven and earth flying immortals arriving in the great heavenly spirit land. Clearly, the major oceanic powers were calling in reinforcements. This was a good thing. However, Guan recalled something. Would the increasing number of cultivators providing support lead to a rise in divine exotic resentful ghosts? He could only pray those sects could resolve the deep-seated trouble in the sea-breaking rift on their own. He was not the protagonist of this heavenly destiny. He could not be relied upon to solve everything, right? He thought it should not come to that. This land was filled with immortal spirit dynasties, and there was a mysterious continent capable of resisting his divine sense with its chi fortune. Furthermore, Guan had also seen many transcendent powers before, none of which Star Sea congregations or Seven-Star Spirit Realm could compare to. Star Sea congregations were rulers of the ocean, but there were many rulers. With Guan's realm, he could already glimpse the chi fortune of sects and forces, and from the strength of the chi fortune, the supreme sect was less than 1/10,000th of the Star Sea congregations, and the Star Sea congregations were likewise less than 1/10,000th of that immortal spirit dynasty. Guan guessed those true first-rate powers of the world also had deployments in outer heaven. They could access more resources, nothing the Star Sea congregations could compare to. The commotion caused by Sword Venerable Fudao did not affect Guan. However, he began spending more time teaching Yang Jian. Ever since he dispersed the waves, Yang Jian had been experiencing more frequent visions, seriously affecting his cultivation. Once, while Guan was instructing Yang Jian in his cultivation, Yang Jian suddenly fell into a daze. Guan had to shake him awake, drenched in cold sweat. Yang Jian had seen himself being devoured, utterly powerless to resist, and the intense pain was not an illusion but a real sensation to his flesh. Unfortunately, Guan could not deduce the source of the visions through cause and effect. Time passed day by day. The year-end arrived. Winter snow covered the land and mountains. In the forest 100 miles outside Mystic Valley, Guan was instructing Yang Jian in the Limitless Freedom Step. Yang Jian possessed high talent and comprehension, but Limitless Freedom Step was equally profound. Mastering it was challenging even for him. After a maneuver, Yang Jian almost crashed into a tree, but he stabilized himself just in time. He turned to look at Guan about to speak, but suddenly frowned. He clutched his head with both hands and unexpectedly knelt in the snow. Guan sensed something was wrong and immediately used his mana to isolate this section of the forest, preventing any unusual occurrences from alarming the supreme sect. He approached Yang Jian and placed his right hand on Yang Jian's shoulder, using his own mana to assist him. In an instant, Guan felt an unknown force of cause and effect attacking. He could resist, but he hesitated for a moment and pretended to be affected. His mind was drawn into a mysterious illusion realm, with Yang Jian's consciousness present as well. Yang Jian sighed in relief upon seeing his master's figure beside him. He was about to speak but suddenly felt something and turned his head. Ahead, a pitch-black shadow appeared, walking out from the expansive snow, seemingly wearing some kind of armor based on its shape. Mystic Gang Dominator Body, a rare sight in a million years. A cold voice echoed from the front, filled with greed. Listening closely, it seemed to swallow something, chilling those who heard it to their bones. Chapter 264. You die, or I perish. Mystic Gang Dominator Body. This was the first time Guan had heard of Yang Jian's physique by name, which made him even more interested in the mysterious shadow. This person must be the great achievement ancient treasure body mentioned by the immortal-seeking Taoist. The illusion was still a world of ice and snow, and the shadow ahead appeared even more terrifying amidst the swirling snowflakes. Yang Jian gritted his teeth and asked, "Who are you, and why do you keep entangling me?" Obviously, he had seen this figure in illusions before. Normally he would be afraid, but with his master by his side, his courage swelled, leaving him only with anger. The shadow stopped, opened a pair of cold eyes, and their gaze landed on Yang Jian, making his heart tremble. You and I are both treasure bodies, nurtured by the chi fortune of heaven and earth. Your dominator body is stronger than ordinary treasure bodies, which makes this seat quite fond of you. 1,000,000 years ago, this seat also consumed a Mystic Gang Dominator Body, greatly boosting my chi blood, leaving a lingering taste until now, the shadow lamented, as if reminiscing about the past. His words made Yang Jian shudder with fear. Did this guy want to eat him? Guan took a step forward and said, "State your name, and let's see if your reputation has left any mark in this mortal world." The shadow's gaze shifted to Guan, smiling. "This seat is named Impermanence Tian. Have you ever heard of it?" Impermanence Tian? Guan fell into deep thought, having never heard this name before. Impermanence Tian continued to stare at Yang Jian and said, This seat will soon descend upon this mortal world. I will put you last. After I consume the other treasure bodies, I will come for you. You have nowhere to run. Even if you escape to outer heaven, this seat will find you. Your only chance is to cultivate diligently and unleash the mysteries of the mystic gang dominator body to become stronger. You die or I perish. Yang Jian gritted his teeth, though panicked inside. With his master nearby, he didn't want to show fear. He said in a deep voice, "Then come, let me see what you can do." Impermanence Tian laughed out loud, turned, and disappeared into the vast snow. This illusion created by the power of cause and effect shattered along with it. Yang Jian opened his eyes to find his master standing before him. Guan helped him up and said, "He has declared battle upon you, and will likely no longer interfere with you. You can cultivate in peace now." In the illusion realm, Guan couldn't perform lifespan detection on Impermanence Tian, but the power of cause and effect from the other side didn't seem unbeatable, so he remained calm. Yang Jian asked worriedly, "Master, should I leave Medicine Valley so as to—" "Nonsense. Focus on cultivating. If you say such rubbish again, I will cripple your Tao level," Guan said sternly, interrupting him. Yang Jian opened his mouth, but eventually held back what he wanted to say. He had the deepest feeling of Impermanence Tian's power, which he couldn't describe. Though he believed his master wouldn't lose, he didn't want his master hurt or caught in bigger troubles, something he never wished to see. Guan didn't say he could easily handle Impermanence Tian, for he wasn't sure of Impermanence Tian's strength either. It was just an opportunity to apply pressure on Yang Jian, hoping to help him grow faster. He said he would first find other treasure bodies. Those treasure bodies must be guarded by great forces, giving you plenty of time to grow, Guan consoled. Everyone has their calamities and fates. Only by constantly overcoming them can you break the shackles. The path of immortal cultivation is inherently against the heavens. You need a heart that is resilient and fearless of anything. Yang Jian took a deep breath, his expression firming up. Yes, why think so much? Soldiers come, fight them off. Water comes, build barriers. As long as he cultivated with all his might, even if he died, what regrets would he have? Then, he resumed cultivating the limitless freedom step. In the snowy winter, the world became a single color, with Guan and Yang Jian in the forest appearing very small. Days unfolded as Guan had foreseen. Impermanence Tian didn't come for Yang Jian again, and Yang Jian was no longer tormented by illusions. The New Year's festival arrived, and the Supreme Sect remained lively, unaffected by the ocean calamity. This year, the Supreme Sect began preparing for a new convention. After the new year, LV Batian came to discuss with Guan about the upcoming convention. This time, the Supreme Sect intended to hold a physical cultivation convention where participants would not use spiritual power or Dharma treasures, relying solely on their bodies and techniques. After their discussion, LV Batian started complaining about the subsects. The power of the subsects was growing, and LV Batian could no longer intervene in their matters. This was the decision of the Hall of Elders and the Venerable Pavilion, clearly aimed at weakening his power. To this, Guan simply listened without commenting. There had always been internal strife in Supreme Sect at every stage, and in fact, it's the same for any sect or place. As long as it didn't jeopardize the entirety of Supreme Sect, Guan didn't care. If LV Batian couldn't compete with others within the rules, it was merely a testament to his lack of skill, and nothing more needed to be said. Speaking of subsects, LV Batian brought up the Ji family. Since Sword Venerable Fudao ventured into the Seven Stars spirit realm, the realm still existed, but it wasn't as dominant as before. Moreover, it had established friendly relations with the Supreme Sect, forcing the Ji family to rebuild ties with the Supreme Sect. If Shen Tianyi wrote for 1,000 years, he would read for 1,000 years. Notably, Green Hero Travelogue was now about overseas lands, which had rapidly boosted its sales. Presently, Supreme Sect disciples increasingly longed for the ocean. Spring faded into summer, bringing another year of splendid scenery. Underneath the mystic pure tree, Guan leaned against its trunk, tenderly stroking the white spirit rat napping beside him. He closed his eyes, appearing to doze, but in fact, he was observing Xiaochuan's life. Xiaochuan had established a family and a career, settled in a city, living a relatively happy life, vastly different from his personality and image in Medicine Valley. He already had the air of a head of the household. Xiao Chuan had a son and a daughter, and they'd hired many servants. Seeing that Xiao Chuan was doing well, Guan felt at ease. After that, Guan turned his gaze toward the sea-breaking rift. Looking into the distance, the sea-breaking rift stretched long, spanning the ocean. Around the rift, one could always spot cultivators and demons venturing in and out, as well as living spirits or divine exotic resentful ghosts escaping, presenting a magnificent sight. It seemed calm, but this peace felt oppressive, like the onset of a storm. After watching for a while, Guan stood up, sensing someone approaching. Someone rode the clouds swiftly into Medicine Valley. It was Vice Sect leader Xianxia, followed by a finely dressed little girl. Guan hurried to greet them, casting a lifespan detection. Xiaoyu, Energy Cultivation Realm 9th Layer 11/240/9999. Goodness, the extreme lifespan reached 9,999 years. The previous Xiaoyu had an extreme lifespan of 8,900 years. Reborn into a new life, her extreme lifespan had increased. Could this be considered reincarnation cultivation? Xianxia saw Guan and smiled. When Guan approached, he spoke, "I want you to look after her. She is Xiaoyu, from a branch of the Ji family." Hearing this, Guan feigned a dazed look, gazing at the young Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu was only 11 years old, not yet reaching Xianxia's elbow. Her expression was calm, with eyes carrying a hint of age, reminding Guan of the previous Xiaoyu's precocious maturity. Seeing Guan lost in thought, Xianxia explained, "She just happens to have this name. LV Batian should have mentioned it. Let her cultivate in your Medicine Valley, and I will take her away later." Saying so, Xianxia turned and swiftly disappeared into the horizon. Guan and Xiaoyu stood on the grass, speechless, a subtle atmosphere prevailing. Just then, a figure appeared in front of Xiaoyu. He squatted down to scrutinize her. It was none other than Nine-Finger Divine Lord. The firelight illuminated his face, which remained indifferent. "Impermanence Tian, Supreme Treasure Body, why do I feel like I want to devour you?" The summer heat was intense. In the third Medicine Valley, Guan rode the Blood Prison Great Saint down from the transmission array platform. Today, he had gone to Jianghu Valley, harvested some medicinal herbs, and spent nearly an hour in the Mystic Valley. Guan looked up and gazed at the distant Mystic Pure Tree. Under the Mystic Pure Tree, Xiaoyu was staring at it, with Li Lingtian standing nearby, saying something. Guan patted the Blood Prison Great Saint, signaling it to head towards the Mystic Pure Tree. "Little girl, my swordsmanship is really amazing. Are you sure you don't want to learn? You should learn it. I see you have extraordinary talent and need an ultimate skill to protect yourself. Why don't you answer me? I am the crown prince of the present dynasty." No matter how much Li Lingtian persuaded, Xiaoyu ignored him, making him stomp his feet in frustration. At this moment, Guan's voice floated over, "First, defeat Jenner with your swordsmanship before you brag." Li Lingtian quickly turned around and awkwardly grinned. Guan dismounted and walked towards Xiaoyu, then said, "Don't disturb her, or I'll have Jenner train you." Li Lingtian's face changed slightly, and he immediately left. When Guan reached Xiaoyu, she was still staring dazedly at the Mystic Pure Tree. Behind them, the banter of the Blood Prison Great Saint and Li Lingtian could be heard, with the Blood Prison Great Saint always managing to irritate Li Lingtian. Guan looked at Xiaoyu, secretly amazed. Had she begun path enlightenment just 1 month after entering the valley? This was too incredible. He did not disturb Xiaoyu, just stood beside her to protect her from being bothered by other disciples. It wasn't until twilight that Xiaoyu finally came back to her senses. Guan guessed it was her body's natural reaction. As night fell, she had to cultivate. Xiaoyu turned and saw Guan smiling. "Valley Master Brother, why are you here? Finished with your work today?" Guan rubbed her head and said, "I finished long ago. What were you thinking about just now?" Xiaoyu called him brother because he arranged it so. Initially, she found it awkward, but she got used to it after half a month. Recalling, Xiaoyu said, I seem to have seen some memories, they belong to me, but I have not experienced them. Oh. What exactly did you see? I saw myself standing in the sky, with many demons and people kneeling before me. As she said this, Xiaoyu's face turned unnatural. She felt like she was dreaming, but she did indeed see it. Chapter 266 Divine Exotic Ghost King. Bitter Sea Buddha Sect. Guan asked, what else did you see? Seeing that Guan did not doubt her, Xiaoyu continued to recount. She saw herself being chased by many people, saw herself diving to the seabed and discovering a palace, and even saw herself flying into the sky to pick stars, among other things. After listening, Guan said, you can come here often if you're free. But Xiaoyu shook her head and said, forget it, my intuition tells me not to touch those memories. After speaking, Xiaoyu turned and left. Guan watched her back and suddenly felt that her reincarnation was not just for improving her aptitude. Thinking carefully, it's true, the power contained in Xiaoyu's primordial Taoist talisman was so strong that she did not need to improve her aptitude before nirvana. Could there be another hidden reason, and Xiaoyu's soul had been wary of awakening her previous life memories? Guan shook his head, not wanting to think too much. After all, Xiaoyu couldn't stay in the Third Medicine Valley forever. At the end of summer, Guan arrived at Immortal-Seeking Island. His divine sense swept around, but the figure of the immortal-seeking Taoist was nowhere to be seen. Did he really escape? He shook his head, then walked into the streets and began to wander around. This time, he did not call Hu Shaojian. Besides buying seeds, he also wanted to inquire about Impermanence Tian's whereabouts. Now there were battles everywhere on the ocean, even heaven and earth flying immortal conflicts. More and more divine exotic resentful ghosts were escaping from the sea-breaking rift, some in groups and some alone. Those divine soul demons acting alone were very strong. Guan didn't keep watching the sea-breaking rift, so he came to listen for news. Sure enough, cultivators all over the streets were discussing the sea-breaking rift and the divine exotic resentful ghosts. It was said that there were 9 divine exotic ghost kings in the sea-breaking rift, each having the power to rival a great sect, and some even holding immortal path supreme treasures. The main forces of the Star Sea congregations once encountered one divine exotic ghost king, suffering heavy losses and failing to capture it. The known divine exotic ghost kings were 3: Impermanence Tian, Defying Joyo, and Yin Yang Chaos. All 3 had 3-word names, and each had heaven-shaking abilities. Impermanence Tian stormed into a force comparable to the Star Sea congregations, swallowing a great talent alive and leaving leisurely, making a name in battle. Defying Joyo created the Joyo Sea Fog, wreaking havoc on the ocean, turning all marine life into white bones wherever it passed. Yin Yang Chaos was even scarier, capturing souls and turning them into ghostly soldiers. The 3 divine exotic ghost kings did not fight together. Each could bring disaster to the ocean. There was also good news. It was said that an immortal path supreme treasure appeared in the sea-breaking rift and was seized by a divine monk from the Bitter Sea Buddha Sect. Bitter Sea Buddha Sect came from a far-off place, not known to the cultivators on Immortal-Seeking Island, only that it was very powerful. Guan wandered around for an hour and then began purchasing medicinal herbs. Before he finished his shopping, dark clouds rolled in, covering Immortal-Seeking Island and darkening the entire island. Although Guan had detected the crisis on Immortal-Seeking Island, he did not panic and calmly continued buying medicinal herbs. When he walked out of the mansion's gate, Immortal-Seeking Island was already like night. His gaze turned to the alleyway corner, where a claw emerged from the pitch-black wall, followed by a hideous ghost crawling out. It was entirely black, with blood-red cracks all over its body, resembling the 1,000-foot figure in the previous terrifying sea waves. After landing, it looked around, its face bearing 6 eyes, and soon locked its gaze on Guan. With a thunderous roar, the whole city echoed with a nerve-wracking howl, as if hundreds of thousands of monsters were howling together. The 6-eyed resentful ghost also howled, leaping like lightning and appearing before Guan in the blink of an eye. Boom! The 6-eyed resentful ghost instantly turned into ghostly mist, scattering around. Guan walked toward the steps, and the entire city erupted in battle. Numerous cultivators and demons flew into the sky, countless divine exotic resentful ghosts rising like a rain of arrows to chase them. Guan did not receive any lifespan prompt and abandoned the idea of gaining lifespan by capturing divine exotic resentful ghosts. Since there was no profit, there was no need to stay long. Guan used the limitless freedom step to leave Immortal Seeking Island. After returning to the Supreme Sect, he leisurely walked into Mystic Valley. In the summer heat, the disciples were all cultivating inside their rooms. Guan went upstairs to rest and only came to the third Medicine Valley in the evening. Now he liked wandering around, seeming very busy but actually doing nothing, just enjoying such a lifestyle. Upon his return, Guan saw the Nine-Finger Divine Lord playing chess with none other than Lu Lingjun's master, the Holy Mother of Western Spirit. Lu Lingjun stood by watching the game, which piqued Guan's interest, and he walked over to join. As he arrived beside Lu Lingjun, he heard the Nine-Finger Divine Lord say with a smile, "Much obliged." The disciples all praised him for his skill. The Holy Mother of Western Spirit was calm. She looked at the Nine-Finger Divine Lord and asked, "May I ask your name, Senior, and what sect you are from?" Currently, various parts of the ocean were under attack from the divine exotic resentful ghosts. Their numbers were increasing, causing the maritime sects to take action. Many sects that Hu Shaojian had never even heard of before displayed their power, astounding him. Deep Sea Spirit Palace, Mortal World Peak, Bitter Sea Buddha Sect, Purple Pill Palace, Immortal Fall Gorge, Vast Energy Taoist Sect, Time Divine Pavilion. This vast world left Hu Shaojian deeply moved. Guan, however, wasn't much affected. He had previously used his divine sense to probe and found that this world was on par with the Star Sea congregations, with over 100 sects at the same level, demonstrating the world's immense strength. Some sects could already travel to outer heaven, yet they remained here. Perhaps there were unimaginable dangers in outer heaven for mortal spirits. Guan was curious about the power that enveloped the great heavenly spirit land, forbidding beings below the heaven and earth flying immortal realm from leaving. What exactly was it? Was it the constraints of the world or the work of some higher force? In any case, Guan didn't plan to venture to outer heaven lightly. Since only heaven and earth flying immortals could leave the great heavenly spirit land, he needed to surpass that level by at least 2 major realms before exploring. It would be too frustrating to die out there. When Hu Shaojian mentioned medicinal herbs, Guan's thoughts returned to reality. Compared to the divine exotic resentful ghosts, he was more concerned with extending his lifespan. The years flowed on. Since ancient times, the mortal world had been full of hardships, but those who could live long lives were few. Longevity and immortality, that was what Guan cared about most. In the blink of an eye, 5 years passed. Guan's lifespan had already exceeded 28 million years, nearing 30 million years. In these 5 years, the ocean faced endless calamities, and Immortal Seeking Island experienced 2 more attacks. However, the mainland where Supreme Sect resided remained peaceful, unaffected by the ocean's tribulations. In the forest, Guan sat on the back of the Blood Prison Great Saint, watching with a smile as Yang Jian and Li Lingtian sparred. Though Li Lingtian had reached the second layer of the core formation realm, he was still suppressed by Yang Jian, who appeared to be only in the Foundation Establishment realm. In reality, Yang Jian had already formed his nascent soul. Even if he suppressed his cultivation to the Foundation Establishment realm, his physical strength was not something a core formation realm cultivator could withstand. Bang! Li Lingtian crashed into a tree trunk, causing the 1,000-year-old tree to tremble, leaves falling. 10 zhang away, Yang Jian retracted his leg, patting his robe. His sharp aura subsided, and the oppressive feeling he exuded disappeared. Li Lingtian sat on the ground, clutching his chest in pain. Ji Xiaoyu furrowed her brows slightly at that. Guan chuckled. If it's not allowed, then forget it. Thank you very much. And House sat in the pool, staring at him without making a sound. Make sure the Star Sea congregations are ready. I want to see if today's Star Sea congregations still have the might of their former days. Impermanence Tian said this and then vanished like smoke. And Hao suddenly awoke, gasping for air, his body regaining its senses. He braced himself on the edge of the pool, his face drenched in cold sweat, but his eyes were full of ferocity. Supreme treasure body, why? And Hao muttered softly, his voice like the growl of a beast. 2 years passed by swiftly. Guan returned to the pavilion with freshly picked medicinal herbs. He checked his attribute panel and saw that he was just 100,000 years away from reaching a lifespan of 30 million years. He smiled. Once I reach 30 million years, I'll break through. Guan sat down at his desk, starting to imagine what realm lay beyond carefree primordial immortal. After a while, a figure walked in briskly, and a fragrance filled Guan's nose, pulling his divine sense back. Xianxia approached the desk, took out a book, and placed it on the desk with a proud smile. Take a look. Guan immediately picked up the book on the desk and began to read through it. The more he read, the more his brows furrowed. Seeing this, Xianxia became nervous and asked, "Is it very bad?" This book was a novel, clearly imitating Journey to the West. The protagonist was also a demon, needing to take risks and travel far to find the immortal path supreme treasure that could fulfill wishes. Objectively, it was pretty good. Guan just felt regretful. Xianxia had reformed. Guan suddenly felt that he was being unreasonable. When Xianxia was writing, he found it annoying. Now that she wasn't, he felt regretful. It's pretty good, keep it up. Guan closed the book and returned it to Xianxia, speaking casually. Xianxia, seeing his dismissive attitude, clenched the book tightly in her hand. At this moment, the sound of footsteps came. Xiaoyu, dressed in white, walked up. At 18, her temperament was even more outstanding. Her features had fully matured, her eyes captivating, and a red thin line on her forehead made her even more stunning. Xianxia looked back and was also captivated by Xiaoyu's appearance. Although Xiaoyu had been in the Third Medicine Valley for years, the two women had never met. Xianxia had not come back for many years. Xiaoyu's gaze fell on Xianxia, appraising her carefully. Suddenly, Xianxia laughed, turned to Guan, and asked, "Guan, do you not like this kind of book and only like to read the Supreme Secret Records?" Guan's expression changed drastically. He quickly said, "How could that be? I like this kind of book." "What Supreme Secret Records? I haven't read those." He shot Xianxia a meaningful look. Xianxia immediately placed the book in her hand on the desk, saying, "Then can you read it carefully? I'll quiz you next time." "Of course, I like it a lot. I'll definitely be able to recite it backward," Guan said seriously. Xianxia gave Guan a look that said, "Smart move," and then left. As she passed Xiaoyu, she nodded with a smile, making Xiaoyu frown. Xiaoyu walked to the desk and softly asked, "Is she threatening you? Tell me, I can help you settle it." At 18, she had already reached the 8th floor of the Foundation Establishment realm. She was very confident in her abilities. Guan laughed and said, "Not at all. I've known her for over 100 years. She just likes to bicker with me. Let's not talk about her. Why are you here?" Xiaoyu looked at Guan and said, "I'm planning to leave for a while. I have some matters to attend to back at the Ji family." "Go ahead. Do you need me to take you to see the vice sect leader?" "Yes." Xiaoyu nodded, and Guan immediately stood up. He had been to the main city of the sect and knew where Jianghu lived. Now he could go anywhere in the Supreme Sect, but he preferred to wander around the Outer Gate City. The disciples of the Outer Gate City were easier to get along with. Inner sect disciples had a bit of a distance, and the disciples of the main city were all filled with arrogance. As a core formation realm disciple, most people in the main city looked at him with a strange gaze. Along the way, Guan and Xiaoyu chatted casually. Although their words were not very frequent, they said whatever came to mind. Even if there was silence, it didn't feel awkward. An hour later, Guan and Xiaoyu arrived at the gate of the Ji mansion. Guan stopped and said, "Go ahead." Xiaoyu nodded and walked toward the gate. Guan turned and left. Xiaoyu stopped and watched him leave, her brows furrowed, lost in thought. Guan could naturally feel her gaze. He didn't dare to look back, fearing she would inquire about the supreme secret records. In this life, Xiaoyu was more suspicious than in his previous life, especially after their relationship grew closer. Whatever she was curious about, she would find a way to understand. After arriving at the inner sect city via the transmission array platform from the main city of the sect, Guan suddenly sensed strong battle energy to the south, with an aura surpassing most heaven and earth flying immortal. Near carefree primordial immortal, but still a bit short. His divine sense quickly probed, his expression becoming peculiar. Why is it him? Guan suddenly thought of something and instantly understood. He didn't stop and continued walking. He walked along the street, looking at the disciples coming and going. Many years had passed, and there were now quite a few demons among the inner sect disciples, marking the initial integration of the human race and the demon clan. Guan continuously performed lifespan detection, incidentally checking the disciples' karma along the way. This was his habit, and also his enjoyment. Chapter 269. Waiting for death? Who said that? All the cultivators in the minor heaven and earth looked towards the black rift hanging on the horizon. Everyone was tense, as if confronting a formidable enemy. These people hid in the deepest part of the Starseed congregation's minor heaven and earth, and the fact that Impermanence Tion could force his way in proved that many Starseed congregation's cultivators had already perished at his hands. A figure flew out from the black rift. It was Impermanence Tion. Impermanence Tion was bare-chested, his hair was disheveled, and a giant python coiled around his waist, its body covered in black scales, the snake's head wrapped around his back, emerging from behind his left shoulder to look forward with him, constantly flicking its tongue. His upper body displayed a bizarre black pattern, as if some kind of emblem, making him look even more terrifying. From afar, his gaze locked onto Anhao. Anhao couldn't help but frown. Impermanence Tion's mouth corner lifted in a fearsome smile. Hurry up and form your formation. Let me see if today's Starseed Primordial Unity banner is as formidable as it was back then. Impermanence Tion's voice echoed as he swung his palm, unleashing a terrifying gale that ravaged thousands of miles. One floating island after another activated their protective formations, forming circles of light, yet all the islands trembled. Great Ming Tian stood at the edge of a cliff, holding the Starseed Primordial Unity banner in one hand, facing the wind. He snorted coldly, raised the Starseed Primordial Unity banner in his hand, and the black flag soared upward, quickly growing larger, reaching a height of 10,000 feet in the blink of an eye, casting the entire floating island into darkness. Moreover, the small flags on Great Mingshan's headband also soared into the sky, standing alongside the 10,000-foot black flag, rapidly enlarging. There were actually 12 Starseed Primordial Unity banners. 12 banners, your capabilities are decent, but this is far from enough. Impermanence Tion sneered, swinging his hand once again. This time, a dreadful blood wind surged out from the black rift behind him like a flood, unstoppable. In an instant, the terrifying blood wind collided with the 12 Starseed Primordial Unity banners. The 12 10,000-foot banners trembled, countless stars on the flag surfaces burst into light, and the ocean below surged, forming a gigantic hand reaching towards Impermanence Tion. Impermanence Tion stepped forward, his right foot landing with such force that it shattered the oceanic giant hand below. Great Mingshan's brow furrowed, his eyes filled with dread. 8th level of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. Ocean waves surged to heights of 10,000 feet, floating islands shattered, the sky filled with thunder and flames, black holes constantly appeared in all directions, and Starseed congregation's great cultivators continuously arrived to aid Great Ming Tian. Great Ming Tian held the flags with both hands. His body was covered in blood, still fighting fiercely with Impermanence Tion. Impermanence Tion punched, and Great Ming Tian crossed the flags to block, but the overpowering force still sent him retreating hundreds of miles, his hands trembling as he held the Starseed Primordial Unity banner, bleeding from the palms. The 10 Starseed Primordial Unity banners in the sky burst into countless lightning bolts, intertwining around Impermanence Tion. Ha ha ha! What joy! What joy! Impermanence Tion laughed wildly, the pain from his physical body only making him more frenzied, even boosting his momentum continuously. The ferocity in his eyes almost became tangible. His gaze once again fixed on the wrathful and Hao, taunting. Be furious, be hopeless, you can only watch as I tear them apart. His laughter echoed across the heavens and earth, drowning out all other noises. And Hao was utterly enraged, wanting to rush up, but the surrounding cultivators stopped him. You going up would only inconvenience the sect hierarch. Qi Jiuxiao said sternly, holding the dragon-slaying spear, the spearhead blocking in Hao's chest. He was secretly shocked. Was this kid's life fire really so intense? And Hao grabbed the dragon-slaying spear with both hands, his gaze fixed on Impermanence Tian, gritting his teeth. But what? If death is coming, let us die first. An old cultivator snorted coldly. Other great cultivators around also spoke harshly, fearless of death. No one blamed Hao, making him feel even worse. Are we really just waiting to die? And Hao's face showed intense unwillingness, anger boiling in his heart, causing the flames on his body to burn more vigorously. Waiting to die? Who said that? A voice reached in Hao's ears, making him instinctively feel irritated. Before he could respond, the surrounding cultivators turned around, as if all were startled. Qi Jiuxiao looked behind Hao, exclaiming in surprise, Fu! Senior! Why are you here? And Hao's body trembled upon hearing this, the flames on his body rapidly dimming. He turned his head cautiously, seeing a familiar figure walking past him and stopping ahead of him. It was none other than Gu An, who had cast the 9 extremes yin-yang body. The dark purple demonic shadow struck the cultivator's eyes, except Qi Jiuxiao and Qi Bei. Others were secretly frightened. Where did this person come from? Why had they not noticed at all? And Hao came back to his senses, hurriedly said, Master, he is one of the 9 divine exotic ghost kings, possessing the supreme treasure body of Impermanence Tian. Enough. Just an ant. Why bother introducing it to your master? Guan said, causing all the surrounding faces to change drastically. And Hao was stunned, then relieved, a smile appearing on his face. An ant? Such arrogant words, and who might you be? Impermanence Tian's icy voice came, full of killing intent. Clearly, Guan had angered him. You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.